All right, everybody. Can you hear me? All right, so if you can hear me, please. It seems very loud or something. Maybe I can. Please chat me something to say that you can hear me. Yes. Is it too loud? Is it not too? There's a good few seconds of lag right now, so I'll wait. So my bitrate is going up and down, so it's not super fast, so we'll see how it goes. I will wait a little bit. Okay, good. Peter is there. Yay! I'm going to talk about you, so it's great. Just going to wait a little bit longer. If anybody has any questions you want me to answer for the time being. I don't expect that we're going to be a lot of people tonight, but at least that's going to be a great recording for people to watch later. So it's going to be more interesting. Because part of the video was it was more like a splash thing than to go deep into the explanations. So I think I kind of succeeded in some ways. Obviously, creating a new platform, and presenting in that format has created different reactions. It was meant to create reactions. Most of them were pretty good. Some were like more inquisitive, as like, okay, what is it and what is it going to be, and obviously there's always those that comes and start telling you what to do. But it's typical from a product release. I remember this high move system one. I remember this happening with the Foenix, the first Foenix. So I have to say that the release of the first Foenix and the Gen X has been pretty similar. The reaction has been pretty similar. I would say that more people excited, although I have to admit that the video was meant to be more like an introduction more than anything else. But anyway, so it's 6:01. So what I will be doing at first is explain a little bit where we are. And what I want to do, I made a list. I'm a list person. So I'll give you a broad explanation of where we are for everybody. I know while Peter is involved, I mean, most people, either they're on the Discord or not, but they know what's going on. But for the general public that will probably watch a little bit later, so basically, for the last, I will start from last year in June when I kind of made a video. Although I have to admit that watching it back, I don't remember saying that I was quitting specifically, but the tone of the video was definitely like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this complaining bullshit and everything, and I was kind of, but people kind of assumed that I was over with. But anyway, it's an old story. Because bottom line, I was kind of, I was kind of in a place where I needed to stop But the funny part is I never really did stop because I need to finish everything that was in the pipe at the time. So which was to finish the FMX, ship all the FMXs, and and then I am sure you do. So Ben is asking about the question. We'll come to that later. Anyway, so from the last June till now, what happened is that I kind of was tired of the complaining. I was like, okay, we're trying to go somewhere. There's a good bunch of people that are really helping to go somewhere. And what happened is that I was, I'm a pleaser by default, so I'm trying to please everybody, and it doesn't work. Obviously, I need to work on that. And I got tired of this, but I still need to fulfill all my orders and ship them out and finish all this. And so during the summer, that's what I did. And at the time, I was still working for the company I used to work for. And then in August, things went down the drain. In September, mid-September, I left the company I was working for. And for a while, I was like looking for a new job, and I was like, okay, but I was kind of depressed because I was really invested in the last company, and things didn't turn out the way they were supposed to, and it was really hit me really hard. And at the same time, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And then, for a while, I was like, okay, maybe I should get deeper into the whole retro thing, and I realized that okay, even my best enthusiasm about it, and I really believe in it. It's a difficult community to be within, in the fact that most people in the community right now, and this is a disclaimer, okay, I'm not trying to insult anybody, I'm not trying to belittle anybody and what they're doing, okay, this is not, what I'm about to say is not about what people are doing. Okay, it's really about, it's like a state of affair, what's the way I see it personally. And it's not a judgment on others and what they do and if it's good or bad. It's not about that. When I need to be judgmental, I'll tell you I'll be judgmental, but that's not about judgment. What I realized over time is that the retro community is mostly users, people that used to be users. They're very excited about going back in retro the same way I was excited about going in retro, and like a lot of people from Generation X actually going back in retro, plus all the millennials and going on. And so far what I've noticed is most people in retro community are users, and they just go back to what they used to love in the past, which is their the machines they used to play with when they were younger. And I get that. I really get that. But nowadays, I mean, with all the technologies we've been developing for the last 30, 40 years, it makes sense to, if you don't have a Commodore 64, you can ultimately find yourself a Raspberry Pi or any other platform for that matter. I mean, a Mister or anything like this, and construct yourself a new Commodore 64. And it's all good. And other people are just like, upgrading their 1980s technology with 2020 technology, right? And this is the thing that just bugs me a little bit, because I'm like, okay, you're going back to your unit, you're going back to your C64, you're connecting back your 1541, you're putting software on it, you're running it, you're playing Commando for an hour, and then that's it. That's basically how I see it. So people are hacking into their computer by upgrading it with technology from 2020, and I'm like, hold on, guys. I think we're missing something. The nostalgia of the retro days are, for us, it's retro now, but the good old days for me, what was fun was the fact that we had these machines that we didn't know, and we got to learn them and got new games, and it was an incremental thing, because when I got my first Commodore 64 in 1984 or 1985, whatever, late 1984, we didn't have anything on it. It was empty. It was like a box, a plastic box, a keyboard. We plugged it, we played with it once in a while, do a little bit of basic, and we were done. Till the first game came about, and then things started to go from there. The first cartridge came about, and we started going from there. And this is what I understand. This is what I got to understand over time, is that this is the thing the retro community is missing. So, and that's what I've been trying to instill with these machines, is that, okay, we have these. I'm trying to bring a new era of 1980s machine back to life. And I think David Muir is doing the same thing. The Mega 65s people are doing the same thing. Anybody else who is thinking about creating a new platform that is totally new has probably the same idea. And I think even if we're in 2020, and then we have all these very, very, very powerful machine, we're still attracted to go back to the good old, 8-bit CPUs, 16-bit CPUs, because we used to have control over them, that we could do anything we wanted. We could really go down in the trench and program them the way we wanted. And that's what I think makes it so appealing. But now that's not what people do. They just go back to an Amiga. And again, it's not a judgment on my part. I'm just saying this is what's going on. And what I'm trying to offer is this part of the adopting a new machine, trying to understanding, trying to learn. Yes, there's a learning curve to it. Yes, it can be tiresome to try to learn something new, but that's part of the game. I mean, how many people who really got into the Foenix really came back to me and say, hey, yeah, yeah, you're right, Move System. It's true. And yeah, it's this, and I don't know, I've lost my thought. But anyway, so what I'm trying to do, and this is the philosophical aspect of this video before I start going into the new product, is really to say that what I'm trying to achieve here, and I know it's been difficult, and last year I was, depressed about this, like, I'm really trying. So they always say, you know what, if you build it, they will come. And I built it. I built one and another, and I have to blame myself from being so short-term thinking maybe on the units I've been. But I've realized that I made mistakes, and I want to change things. And I like to work on, as much as people like to program on these machines, I like to come up with new ones. And I think the idea to just bring one and then to come with another one is also part of who I am, which is trying to please everybody all the time. And I'm still, again, trying to work on that. I think I'm way better at saying no today than I used to be, but I get always a little bit riled up about it, because for me, it's really obvious. It's like, even when I release the video, some people say, hey, there's so many connectors in the back for the joysticks, why don't you put a USB? And I'm like, dude, you're completely missing the point. Those connectors are cheap. It's not the point. It's like it's a 1990s machine. What are you talking about? But again, so some people get it, some people don't get it. Anyway, so and I'm also caught in this catch-22 situation where, in order for the machine to take off, I need programmers, and for developers to go into the machine, they need to be interested in the machine, and they need to believe in it the same way I believe in it. I mean, we are a small community, and I'm really grateful for all the people in the community, and I will say thank you to them for supporting me and being part of this journey. But it's been difficult, because that's the thing. This is embracing this technology, and I'm sure now that we're going outside of the 816, and again, I'm not going to judge the 816. I said what I said before about it. It's like, it's a great CPU, but it's always been a fringy CPU, and people are kind of not comfortable going with the 816. And the entry level, it's difficult to start programming with it. It's not as easy as doing an Intel or a Motorola or anything, because it's a lot less common. It's basically like trying to work on something like a Raspberry Pi, but it's not a Raspberry Pi. You're kind of afraid. You're like, okay, this is not the same thing. Will I find all the software I need? It's the same thing. So the Gen X, in a way, is this moment where we're going to open ourselves up to this world of other processors. And I think that was something that needed to be done. Some people will ask, okay, what is the point of keeping the 816? The 816 is that we've been investing in the 816s for 3 years, and I think it makes sense to keep it. Doesn't mean that something later down the line we might have something without an 816. I'm just saying that for now, it's like this way of going from one to the other. Because if you get a machine and you can run stuff already from it from day one, I think it's exciting. And it might also bring more people from the 68,000 side to the 6816 side. We never know. Anyway, we'll see. So just to finish my story, is that ultimately from October, November, it was kind of obvious. Like, it's like sometimes the universe presents you a path, and you're like, You don't want to go into it. You don't want to walk into it, because it's like, I don't want to do this. It's like, that's not what I want, right? It's not so obvious sometimes to say, okay, this is, back in the day, I wanted to start many companies. I wanted to start businesses and everything. And I sabotaged them all. And I ended up saying, you know what, I'm done with this thing. But apparently this time the universe says, well, you know what, this is what's going to happen. Because every time I tried to find a new job, I did some possibilities, but things didn't work out. So, but I was still fighting it in October, November, and December. And then finally in January, February, I was starting to warm up with the idea. And in the meantime, I did the low cost version. And, we created the thing that people complain about all the time. Oh, it's too expensive, too expensive, too expensive. But it's tricky because it's weird, because I tried to make it as cheap as possible. And yet people are buying it. I mean, a certain amount of people bought it. And I said, okay, I'm not going to put an enclosure with it because it just increases the price. And most of the people who bought the used want an enclosure. They're willing to pay more. And not so long ago, it just occurred to me that it's not about the cost. It's the value that it brings to people. And that's what this retro thing is about, right? But it's weird because this is something that should be so obvious that it's not about the cost. People will shed all the money in the world for their hobby. They're really interested or they're into it. So it's not about the cost. I mean, obviously, people don't want to pay $2,000 for a new retro computers. I get it. But for me, I was trying to make a point and say, okay, I gave you what you wanted, but you still don't want it. So it's not about the cost. It's not about what it costs. It's not your money. It's how you see it. So coming back to, so basically in March and April, I had this, finally to finish my story. So back in April, I had this big job in New Jersey, and everything was set out to work out great. I had the offer and everything. And then for some reason, I don't know why, I was going to get my, I went to the border. I was going to get my visa, but it didn't work out. So something went wrong. I didn't get it. But instead of trying to find a new solution, basically I came back from that day and I was stuck in my apartment for 2 weeks because I was back from, they forced me to be in quarantine for just staying a couple of hours across the border. That was just so stupid. Got to do some COVID testing and everything. But anyway, that's beside the point. So it was kind of very upsetting, but at the same time, it's like after a week, they just withdraw their offer. It's like, wow, my God, this is so weird. You're not even fighting for it. You're ready to give me the whole world, but you're not even able to fight it. It was weird. But you can tell when the world is, or the universe is putting something in front of you and just, taking it back from you. Maybe it was my Jonah's whale. I don't know. I think taking this offer would have been a mistake if I would have got it. But anyway, so that's, again. So till up to that point, I was still, okay, let's go work and let's make the Foenix a hobby. And then after that, it was really clear to me that I was like, okay, this is not where I need to go. And I kind of started to embrace it. Like, okay, I need to embrace that. Okay, this is where I'm going. If I'm running out of money, well, I'm running out of money. So be it. But if the universe wants me, I'm a very believer of the whole concept of the Tao, the river. We just follow the flow and you just don't control. You just let things happen. And so far, it's been relatively pretty cool. So I'm okay. I'm not running on tons of money, but that's fine. There's great people helping me and I really appreciate it. And I'll be begging for more money. But anyway. But after that time in April, this is where the idea of doing the Gen X came. It was like, okay, we need to get out of this 816 shackles. And no offense to David, no offense to Bill. We needed to get out of it because otherwise we're going to die. Because as much as we all love the 816, it's still very fringy processor. It's not like very common. I mean, everybody loves their 6502s, but when we start talking about 24-bit addressing, everybody just, I'm going to do this, right? So anyway, so the idea of the Gen X came. I laid out what I wanted to do, and I said, I need to make a splash. I need to come back. And one of the things I wanted to say before is I think I've been victim of my own. In reality, what I'm trying to say is that in the past, from last year to now, well, about a month ago, I would say, my intentions were not very clear. And I think my intentions were, in and out, in and out, in and out. And I think that's basically what I projected outside the world. And the world is like this right now, or it was like that for a while. Like people didn't know. Okay, so they're not going to invest in something that they don't know if it exists or not. Am I dedicated to it? Am I really going deep into it? And till I really made the decision to do it, then it was really like the world was reflecting what I was. So I'm trying to get better at making precise, giving out precise information, saying, okay, this is where I'm going. Right now we're in a weird time because, okay, I had the U, I sold some U's, the U's were great. They were really a good stepping stone towards the Gen X. That's the surprising part. We didn't sell a lot of them. And now we have shortages. I need to redesign it. So I don't think the future of Foenix Retro Systems is with the U. The U was a stepping stone. We'll probably make more, but I mean, this is not where we go or should go. I think there's way more to come, and I think it's going to be way more fun than just a U. But it was the entry level. I hope it can still be there, but I guess by the time we get with the other units, maybe people won't be interested that much into it anymore. But anyway, we'll see. So the U that I designed during fall time and in early this year was a very, I would say, it was coldly received, but again, I was like sending these mixed messages about, yes, it is going, it's not going, it's going, and even my updates every month are were very kind of loosey-goosey, like, okay, this is where I'm going, this is what happened. So this is a lesson learned for me to not be so either communicative with the world about what's going on in my life, or be more, this is where we're going, and be more dedicated or really going into it. Anyway, so this is where we are. So we're in June, a year after this decision of mine to do whatever I did. And a week ago, I've decided to release this video that took about a month to make, which meant that first I needed to lay out the board to start the first, version of the schematic, place the components on the board. I did some mini surveys on the Discord channel to ask, okay, what kind of packages. It was not very detailed, but it gave me a trend. It's not like I had like 1,000 people answering my survey, but it was surprising to see how many people were interested in the 68,000 on a Discord channel that has its focus the 816. And that was really a wake-up call for me. And I was like, okay, we need to get out of that. But at the same time, I didn't want to shoot myself in the foot and say, okay, with the 3 years we worked on this, we want to garbage it, right? So the idea of the Gen X came because I was already looking forward to do a new version of the FMX, a little bit more featured, a little bit more stuff in there. But then the Gen X became the EX, the FMX EX, which was supposed to be an extreme edition. And then I was trying to be a little bit more giving on the form factor of the unit, right? Because yeah, it is sweet and nice if you don't want a 3D printed enclosure to find yourself an ITX, mini ITX enclosure and try to fit it in. So I tried to follow that rule. And then from the model of the mini ITX came the idea, okay, let's do a cube enclosure somehow to honor the work of Steve Jobs, because I have a lot of respect for the person, but I do have a lot in common with him in that regard. And I always been a fan of all that was, cube-like and all the silicon graphics stuff, although it was not the primary idea at the beginning, but the colors and everything, all those high-end machines were very inspirational to create the Gen X. So when the PCB design was over with, well, PCB design, I mean like the placement of the components. So we have something that resembles something that will look how it should look like at the end. And also it helps in the process of creating the product and saying, okay, how I'm going to do this, that. And I had to make the choices about the power supply, for example. In the past, the FMX power supplies, big hassle, because those power supplies you need to buy from somewhere. And if you cannot buy 500 of these in China, they're pretty expensive. And then I would have to buy these power supplies that most of them have anyway. And I would have to buy them, pay full taxes and everything on it, and then resell them to you at more taxes than you would pay duty on it. And that's why it didn't make any sense. Okay, buy your own. But then which one do I buy, right? So that was one of the thing was that important. That's like, okay, let's integrate the power supply, because then I can buy these individual power supply. They're pretty cheap. I don't have to buy 500 of these. And I was like, okay, this is great. Gonna fit it in, just one plug, one cable. That's it. That's all, problem solved. So that's amongst the thing I needed to figure out. Okay, so I brought this design, I started doing it. I went through many revision of the enclosure, and I figured out, and it's not even finished at this point. This is something I wanted to write in the video, but I didn't write it. It is not finished. So there's still the speakers because there's an amplifier inside. That's another thing, It's great to have an amplifier so you don't need to have your own set. So I tried to integrate as much as I could to really make it like a high-end system. Because that's another thing that I realized over the last 3 years is that there was the Mega 65 that's been alive for the last 5 years. There was David that came along. Well, his desire to do a retro system was in 2018, but then he asked people around to do it for him at first. Then when he saw he didn't get it, then he'd start doing it himself. So he's kind of a year behind me. But what I realized is that we were 3 groups, swimming in the same pond. And we're all swimming in the 8-bit era. And I was like, and this is something that just realized not so long ago. I was like, okay, I need to get out of there because I don't have the audience the Mega 65 has. I don't have the audience that the Davids has. I mean, they have huge audiences. I don't have this. So I need to kind of separate myself from the group and say, okay, I'm going to get out of that marketplace and go get the fancy people, the richer people, the people that are really looking for to have a great challenge and work with fancier processor, bigger processor. And I think there's a huge amount of people out there that have been waiting for this. Because don't get me wrong, I think there's plenty, I don't know if they're plenty anymore, but there's few SoCs in the market that are 68,000 base and everything, but they're usually not as stuff with sounds and graphics the way the Gen X will be. So in the way the platform is very unique. So I think if anything happens that makes us more successful in the future is the fact that we decided to leave this arena of the 8-bit CPUs and just focus on the 32-bit CPUs. And that's my desire because from the very beginning, my preferences was the 68,000 as opposed to 816. 816 was David's choice and I followed that choice. So I forgot my train of thoughts again, but anyway, so in a way, this is the direction I'm going. And that's what really started to feed the ideas. Okay, but I didn't want to get stuck either on the 68,000. And so I went through, okay, so which one would be interesting? So the 6820 is like middle of the ground between the 68,000, the 6830. And then it's not really worth it. Then you have the 30 and the 40, but the 40 is really like going from a 486s to a 586s. It really becomes a little bit more complex. And then the 60, I don't have any plan to do the 60 right now because it's really complex. Way more complex. So it's another step, right? Anyway, so I decided to go and try to hit the spots where people would be very interested in certain numbers. Okay, they're not going to run at 200 megahertz. This is a retro computers. I want to use the real chip. And this is one of the rules. We need to use real CPUs, real speed. I know it's 40 megahertz for the 68040 or 68040, maximum speed is 40. This is it. This is 40. Listen, if you want to put an accelerator and it works, great. I'm not going to try it. My system, or the system I'm trying to do is really something I'm trying to stay within 0 and 100 megahertz. So for example, the i46, the 486 DX2 is 33 outside and 66 inside. So which is great. So as long as the bus outside is lower than, I would say, 75, 80, we're good to go. Because otherwise then we start having timing issues and problems. So this is important that you keep that in mind. So I'm really open to try to have different type of CPUs, the MIPS, the harm, not so much, but anything that is fancy in the future, but we need to stay within these parameters because this is the sweet spots, right? This is where we start having fun. Too fast, then you know what? Might as well, get yourself a CPU at 2 gigahertz and play with it, because faster processors tend to be more complex, and then it gets out of hand. You go back to where we were before. Anyway, so I want to cut it. I don't want to talk for too long. It's been 30 minutes. I've been blah, blah, blahing, but at least you know where I'm going with this, where I'm standing. So the idea in the future is to push for that machine, try to make it mainstream. I mean, I'll talk probably later about the software and everything. Something I want to say as well is I was very, very hands-on with the 816. I was really in terms of software, hardware, I wanted to control everything because I wanted to maintain the vision. I think it's important that there's somebody pushing for the vision, and this is my vision. What I would like to do, this is my big vision. In the idealist world, I'd like to be able to create a new 8-bit, 16-bit, retro-bit computer era. Like there's new machines, everybody gets them. This is my end goal, okay? In the best world, I don't care if there's 10 gigahertz system. It's besides the point. This is a different world. But in the best reality, or in the best case scenario, I would like to literally reboot the whole world of retro computers where we can literally learn a new machine, develop new software for it, new games for them, new demo scenes for them. This is ultimately the goal, okay? I'm not sure I'm going to get there. I don't know if the machine will be adapted at that point. I know the price is high, but you know what? It's funny because if you compare it to the prices of 1984, this is really, really cheap, right? There's ideas to do Kickstarter campaign later to try to cost reduce it. Listen, new technology, whatever it is, always have the same cycle, right? A new TV, a 16K TV will cost $20,000. After a few years, it's going to be $2,000, and then 2-3 years later, it's going to be $500. Okay, this is the same thing. Right now, I'm selling 1Zs and 2Zs and 3Zs and 10Zs, and that's it. And I'm still within. I don't sell a lot, and I need to sell more. And I don't know what to do to get people because I need to teach and teach and teach and teach. But while I'm teaching, I'm not doing design. And like I mentioned in one of my email out that I did this week, it's like the Martin Marble Machine X syndrome, where if you want to be great at designing, you cannot be great at doing videos, and vice versa. And Martin has a team. I'm alone. I mean, in doing the whole thing. So price will go down. Yeah, but $300, Peter, $300 in 1981 is like probably $600-700 now. So you literally bought yourself a VIC-20. This is what people forget as well. I mean, the value of money is it's not even valuable for the paper it's written on. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that I know it's expensive. It looks expensive, but again, I think it comes back to value. What is the value of the value proposition? And I need people to just fall in love with it and just embrace it and do stuff with it. Because this is another important aspect of what happened in the past, is that people bought, there was 100 units sold overall to this day, which is not a lot comparing that. I think the Megatron or the Gigatron computer sold a lot more than that. It's the fact that a lot of people bought the unit for a novelty. Oh, it's cute, it's nice. Most people didn't do anything with it. I would say that 85% of people didn't do anything with their unit at all. None. And that's the aspect of people that actually invest in their time in the machine, is that from the moment they have the machine, they go and hide and they don't come back and they don't share what they do. And that's something we need to be better at, because I cannot do everything. You know, people that design games, I mean, there's few people on the Discord right now that do that. They come up with stuff, and there's a need to have stuff created that other can use, and things needs to be released at some point. Even it's not it doesn't need to be fancy. I mean, I remember I played like I remember playing like Forbidden Forest. I mean, Forbidden Forest was absolutely amazing for 1984. I mean, I think the guy designed it, and I don't know what he did. The guy was a musician, but the music was absolutely stunning. And that was the first game we put on the cassette. I talk about Forbidden Forest all the time. That was the first game we ever played. And it was not that great. And all the first years of the Commodore 64 game were not that great. But you know what? Even, what's his name, Beat Ed on the Discord channel, you know, he did this crap game. It's not even finished. You know what? There's only 64 sprites. I mean, only 64 sprites in Viki 2 right now. And he came up with a game, something that looks like a game that had 288 sprites. So within a few months, that guy multiplexed 64 sprite into 288 sprites. So don't tell me there's nothing we can do with that freaking machine. There's a lot we can do. And I wish people would just let go of the past and say, you know what, the past is the past. I'm not saying it's not fun to play Commando once in a while. I'm just saying that after you played with it, it's just But again, that's my perspective. All right, so I kind of lose the whole thing here. So here's the plan. So basically, before I go into the video, guys, if you get involved, I would say, Rob, you're talking about you want to buy them. Please buy them sooner than later, because it helps me survive for me to finish things. Okay. Honestly, I could sell 10 of them by every month. I would be able to survive. You know, I would be fine. You know, and it's important that people don't. I mean, you don't have the money, it's fine. You want to wait, it's fine. I'm not forcing anybody to put their money in that endeavor, but I think I've shown I think I have a great track record of saying or doing what I said, even sometimes if it's a bit delayed. And I'm not a scammer by any means. So I really want to get this thing out there. And the sooner you buy the machine, the better, because it helps create the funds necessary to actually create the machine. So waiting is not helping. But anyway. So I would say also, if anybody, the new people, there's been a lot of new people coming in Discord. I'm really happy about that. I'm really, really happy about this. Guys, anything you do in the future, please bring it in, talk about it, show it, please share with others. Please use the machine, because you know what, I put so much love in those machines, and they're being used as a door stopper. It's a bit insulting. Well, that's what a creator, I'm not sure if, what's his name, who did the Mona Lisa would really be so happy to see. Well, I mean, it's in the museum, but it's fine. I'm losing track. Okay, all right. So first thing, please invest in the machine as soon as you can. Anything you do, please don't buy it just as a novelty. If you want a novelty, just wait. Please share with the community what you're doing. And to finally close the discussion, I said at some point that I was very hands-on with the 68, 8000, 816. I don't want to be hands-on with the Gen X at all. I mean, the only thing I want, and I think we shared, me and Peter, the idea to bring in a common kernel for all the different processors, a very thin layer, just to do the basic stuff. I mean, Peter can do whatever he wants with it after that, but I mean, I think we agreed on the fact that it's going to be a C-based kernel that you get to have when you start the machine. After that, please do whatever you want. Put any system on it, put Linux on it, I don't care. Okay, I don't want to I'll focus on the hardware. Please put software in this thing. And I'm sure, okay, I would say try to not making a PC. It's not a PC. Okay, even if 46s seems to be like, oh, it's a PC. No, it's not a PC. Even if there's hardware that looks like a PC. I mean, the Super I/O, it was made for the PC. I'm sure there's a lot of software that could be ported that could probably help the acceptance of it. But it's not because you're bringing over a game, a source game of a PC into the system that necessarily makes it a PC. So that would be only my only fear. But anyway, again, I'm trying to let it go. Okay, I trust you guys to do what's the best. Create a new OS. That'd be awesome. And that's another thing about the philosophy behind this is that I see this as a new way to create new things for ourselves. Because back in the day, corporations were driving the whole thing, right? Xerox engineers had already figured it out, how the GUI would be and everything. And I think it's a great time for us to just redo things. Our way, the way we think it's better. We had the experience of all these things in the past. We always have the Xbox on the upright corner. Some people will say, well, this is the most, best place to put it. Yeah, maybe not. So please try to recreate new things. We can recycle old things to get people to embrace it, but I would really want people to create new things from scratch, really, really new things from scratch. But anyway, so I'm done with my speech. I'm done with my sermon. Yeah, that's it. My sermon with my super heavy accent. All right, so what I'm going to do is I want to play the video and talk a little bit about it, but I really want to focus on the features of the unit. I'm sure most people, most viewers right now, this is what you're interested in. If you have any questions, I will get to the portion why, you know what? If we have any questions now, I will wait a few seconds, I will answer them and then get into the video. I'll open the door a little bit because it's going to be warm here. Ben, so you would say you would have thought it would be more in terms of an American version of the Sharp. You know what? I don't know. I know a little bit the X68000. I'm not too familiar. I know it's a very graphic heavy machine. I mean, there's a lot of custom chips like Silicon Graphics. These things were absolutely amazing. It's almost like a, arcade board game type of thing. In a way it is. If you think that VK2 does a lot of things, VK3 will do a lot more, but it's doing a lot of graphics. And there's so much sound in all the Foenix's products. Guys, the new people, dudes. There's an OPN2. It's going to be an FPGA version now, but there's a YM2151. There's a SID. In the Gen X, you'll have 2 real SID and 2 fake one. There's so much sound, and you know how many people have played with the sound chip so far? With 100 people out there? 2, 3? This is absolutely insane. What are you doing, people? Anyway, all right, so let's go on with it. So anybody else has questions right now about what I said? And then we're gonna get on the video and get on with it. I have my list here. All right, so no, 3, 2, 1. No questions? All right, let's do it. All right, fundamentally, like I said, the idea of the video was to do something bold, I would say. I don't think anybody did anything like this. I wanted to tell a story. It was the story of the product, where it's coming from, but the idea behind it, the thing I've been talking about for the last 20 minutes or half an hour, 40 minutes, is that there was a time where in the 80s, there was all these different computers. They were all different. And everybody had a blast on them. Everybody was creating their thing. Everybody had their preference. Either they were forced to use a certain because their father couldn't buy a certain model, or they bought the one they wanted. We hear the same story over and over again. But then the PC came, the corporate world came, and just took over the whole thing, and then PC came. It was like the age of darkness. It's like freaking monochrome monitors, CG board, boring. Obviously, things have changed. I mean, within probably the early 2000s, things starts to be a lot better. 3D graphics came, so on and so forth. But I'm just saying, early on, by the time we were, you know, if you're a Gen X, then by the end of 90s, you were already like going into your 20s, and you were already going into the so in 20s, and so we had to kind of embrace the whole PC world. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there was the Mac with its GUI and everything. It was beautiful, it was gorgeous, but it was very expensive. It was for designer. And this is where I go. This is the idea was and is to bring back this fun we used to have, because this was a great time, right? This creativity. Sorry, my French is just scrapping the whole thing. It was anybody who was in love with retro is because there's nostalgia aspect, and amongst those things that we don't have today is this discovery, this renewal of, oh wow, look, there's a new machine, and this is what the whole Foenix series is about. Okay, and this is what it's so difficult to sell, because people don't get it. But anybody who has actually done the work on Discord right now, anybody who's actually doing work on the machine absolutely loves it. And it actually has this effect on them. They're really happy to go back to it. I mean, I don't have 20 examples, but I had few that came back to me and say, you know what, this is the great things. Just brings me back to where I was when I was in the 1980s. And that's what I think retro is all about. But anyway, so that's the introduction, the text introduction at the beginning. So before I go, I'm going to answer Ben. Would it be possible to use the 65 for some features and the CPU on the cards for others? I'm going to talk about this later. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about this later. Ben, I will answer that questions, because not so long ago, I mean, a few days ago, I would say that this is something I was planning to do, but certain technicalities came and maybe we won't be able to do it, but we'll see. So let's go with the video. So I don't know if you can hear it. I hope you can, but probably is also the video. So you have the whole presentation thing. So this is the new logo. This is the new. Oh, maybe I can reduce the volume a little bit. I don't know if I can. So the idea was to do a little bit of, Blade Runner style. I have a very epic style in my videos and everything. And so this is really the beginning of the story. Okay, what happened? And then we all died in 1980s because, PC was so boring. And then I bring in the idea of doing the Gen X, which is supposed to be like a renewal, like I don't know. It's the revival of the whole generation. And now that we know everything that we know, might make things a lot easier or faster. But one of the problem is that we do bring our past with us, and we tend to recreate what we know. And this is something I'm trying to get people to also get off and try to not do, but trying to resist, to tell people what to do, they don't like it. All right, so first off, okay, so it's a 1990 computer. Move system 1. What about color? Will it have iColor mode, 65, 24-bit color mode? Okay, with the 68,000, there's new possibilities. Okay, I will answer a warm yes to the question. A warm yes saying that absolutely at some point, early on probably not. The CPU is 64 at 32-bit. There's more memory. There's more bandwidth. I can certainly do a 24-bit mode, but I would have to include also all the engine to deal with this. Okay, because doing sprites in 24-bit mode takes more bandwidth. So there might be a game mode where it's 256 bits, and there might be more like UE mode where it's full color, but then you have all the DMAs that do all the job of moving. It's like a 2D engine, if you will. The other question, Jeffrey, could it be as powerful as a computer with the added supercharger module and using GeOS 3? Well, ask anybody. I think the Foenix right now is already more powerful than the 64. I mean, all the graphics and everything. GeOS 3, I don't know about GeOS 3. I think we'll have stuff way better than GeOS 3. I mean, even Mike was doing a OS for the 65816. He's slowly coming back now. Yeah, it's so much possibilities, and that's the funny part, is that this machine is a blank slate, and we need people to make it something new. I'm just doing the hardware. Anyway, so again, a little bit of Trom vibe with the video. So the idea is that, okay, I started the design, I had the board 7x7. This is the mini ITX form factor, but obviously I couldn't put all of these things on the board, so I had to figure out ways to put these in different places for different reasons. So what I wanted to have was the PS2 in the front, but have a recess so the cable would not be in the way. There would be the push button that choose between the push buttons, really, do you want the 816 or the 68,000 or any modules you put in the system, okay? So because they would have both an FPGA, a flash to program the FPGA. So at the base level right now, the system would be, you get it, you put it on your desk, you plug a monitor, you power it, you'll have an 816. It's like you have a very high-end FMX on your desk. Same vibe, same everything. It's exactly just more memory, that's all. VK2, all these things, instead of being SRAM, it would be DRAM for the video memory, but that's about it. So it should be completely transparent. Every piece of software that runs back in the day should work on it, okay? So that's the idea. Now, when you push the button in the front, then you would say, okay, we go to the module. The available modules right now or the one I want to offer is the 68,000 at 20 megahertz. This is the highest speed for the SEC. You'll have the 6830 at the fastest speed, I guess 33 or something. And the 40. The 40 is a bit tricky. We'll see what I'm going to do about this. And the 46 DX266. I think it's a great mix and match. Then there's the RISC-V. The RISC-V is an FPGA, so that's probably the last one I will do. But the RISC-V, I think, would be great for people to start learning about RISC-V on something that is very graphic and sound-oriented, makes it more fun to learn. So that's the idea behind the RISC-V. So the button in the front is the button you would push to switch the system. So a new flash boots, a new FPGA is programmed, and this is why I can say that we could do the VK3 or whatever you want to call it would be an enhanced version where you would have all these modes that allows you to do higher graphics. I mean, right now I have 3 crystals in there to do 640 by 480, 800 by 600, and 1024 by 768. Because it's going to be probably very GUI driven. So I figured that having a little bit higher resolution would work great. We'll have more memory, which is great, but the bandwidth of the memory is still limited. Okay, so this is important to keep in mind. The bus is wider, but it's still very limited. So don't expect to have like super PC. You'll have probably the equivalent of an Amiga 2000 maybe performance or something out of the graphics system, which is still pretty good if you ask me. A lot of hours of fun if you ask me. Anyway, so that button is really important because this is the one that switches between one and the other. And that's the basic idea at the beginning. Of course, you have all the system to maybe make them work together, but then there's some restriction, and I'll talk about that later. All the Foenix has the headphone in the front. You have the dip switches. I wanted to keep it in front because there's certain things it's kind of cool to be able to change. But the weird part of this is that the dip switches might have to have the same definition for both CPUs. So we'll have to see. So moving on. So yes, the floppy. I still want the floppy, although I might do a version without the floppy. It's still pretty easy to find those floppies. There's a lot around of those slim version. I wanted to keep the reset button. I think any retro system needs to have a reset button. I think everybody would agree on that. And I wanted to, put some LEDs on the side for the power on. That would be an RGB LED that you could program. And 3 of these guys would be RGB LEDs you could program. Although I think now one is actually the hard drive, so no RGB for this one. And then on the other side, you would have the name with the strips RGB. They would be transparent. You could program them. So this is my attempt to do 2020, 2021 technology. And then when I'm saying 2020 is I'm including the whole, the whole 10 years to follow. Scott, this is a you push it and it stays there. You push it for it to be released. So it's a toggle button. So it's not like a reset button. It's a toggle button. Anyway, so in a nutshell, you would have the light on the side. It would be flashing on both sides. This is my gift to the RGB people in this world. So moving on. So I fought with myself for a while about the whole, do I speak during the video? Maybe I should have. By the way, the SD card is there. We don't see it very clearly, but it's here. So the SD card is there as well. So it's vertical entry SD card. And few people in the Discord have been working real hard to make sure that we can have access to all the SD card, because the controller by default doesn't do very fancy, very 2020-ish SD card, but now apparently it does, so we'll see. So I'm sure that will make people very happy. All right, so in the early FMX, there was this Super I/O chip that allows you to have serial ports, parallel ports, all the basic device a good old PC, AT, XT motherboard had, plus the MIDI, the whole thing, the floppy controller. So in the U, it disappeared, and the Gen X, it reappeared for obvious reasons, because I wanted to bring back the MIDI ports. I want to have 2 full ports, the serial ports. So this is what we see here on the side. So there's a vertical board that has the Super I/O chip that will be connected with the board with a flex cable. Now, early on, I didn't want to have any Ethernet. The only way I saw Ethernet was to, the vision I had about the Ethernet was to have a, maybe one day people would have the machine and they could do, pixel art games, but, crowd games and, since you could connect this to a server, and the server would be so powerful. I mean, you don't need a very powerful server to do 2D games in 640 by 480. But I thought that would be a great use of the Ethernet port, to be able to do multiplayer gaming, but with a retro system. And I still think this would be a super awesome thing. I didn't want to do Internet with it, but I'm sure people will do it. Aberu, you're asking if it's going to be a beige edition? Maybe, we'll see. Dip switches. So Scott, you ask, dip switches exposes the outside of the case. Exposed to outside the case. I'm not sure I understand your question. If you can pose it a better way, maybe I could answer it. Anyway, so the Ethernet port. So it's kind of interesting because in between the Gen X and the FMX, I came up with 2 expansion cards for anybody who's new here. So there was an expansion card for the FMX and the U to have an extra video display, because you know what, when you're developing something, having graphical on one side and text on the other is really awesome. I'm sure people would agree with this. And then I created also a SID card, but both had the Ethernet. So I made up my mind. I kind of let go of the whole, somebody will put Linux on this. I don't know why I thought this idea, but anyway. And at this point, the idea was to really put all these expansion cards like a Mac in that sense. So I integrate everything, so there's nothing to integrate to the machine later. So I kept in the Gen X the 2 display port. What I would like to do with the second DisplayPort and just being text might be something more. I don't know still if they could do both. Either I will have two heads exactly the same, or one will be very graphical heavy, and the other one will be text, more text oriented, but very fancy text. Like all the attributes, the flashing, all the different things that some people have been asking for. More colors, more of this, more like a development area on one side. But at the same time, you could still reprogram the font set, or maybe have a small sprite set or something like this, or tile set or something. So if you're doing RPGs, you could literally have your text on one side and your graphics on the other. So you don't have to have the little windows opening up and blah, 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 although this is what makes RPGs sexy, I guess. So something like this. So semi-graphic or something. So having the two heads was super important for me. This is a main feature of this. The debug port for the system is still there. Yes, there is dip switches in the front. Those dip switches are usually used for, there was some of them that are used for user defined. You can define your own dip switches in the front for your application, or you develop an OS, you want to decide whatever. There was one for the gamma table, if you want to put on the gamma table or not. Is the hard drive on, stuff like this. Okay, so I wanted to give, and you know what, the dip switch is very early retro computing as well. So if it's not super useful, it's definitely a recall of what it used to be. Okay, so it's still there. It's probably going to still be there on other system as well, because it needs to be there. It's like, remember when you start debugging your first PC and you had all those dip switches, wait state, and all these things. I'm sure people remembers that stuff. We hated it, but it's part of the past, and I wanted to bring that, and that's part of the whole idea. So if I move on, so the two video heads are there. They need to be more refined and more defined. So one of the ideas also is that I want to get this thing out as soon as possible, and it might be not as good as it could be or it will be, but at least you have something to work on. Like basically my first goal will be to change Viki to deal with the DRAM, and then release all the different processors to deal with Viki 2 graphics system. And then I will improve on Viki 2 graphics system to make it better. Oh, Jesse, you there? So the debug port is still there. So for anybody who's new, the debug port is the only anachronism about this unit, is the fact that you have a very high-speed serial port at 6 megabaud to connect with the Foenix IDE or any other script. It's a very simple protocol, very, very simple protocol that allows you to stop the processor, dump memory, read the memory, and reflash the system flash. That's what it does now. I'll try to do more with it in the future, so we can literally do a little bit of breaking point, stuff like this. But back in the day with the FMX, it was very difficult because of the fact that the two custom chips were separated. In the U, it's a lot easier to do, but for compatibility issues, I never really did it. But the Gen X, I'll definitely do it, where you can actually put some breakpoints and get it to stop. The 816 is a bit weird about stopping the processors and so on and so forth. So it was difficult to put in place things to get the CPU to stop and to be able to go back into memory. But in theory, I could get it to, you could set some breakpoints and get it to stop, and you could go read the memory and then let it go again without resetting it. Because so far, when we play with it, we have to reset and reset again. So the debug port is definitely a feature that is still there, will always be there. And again, some people wrote scripts to talk to it. Some people use the IDE. I love the IDE personally. I don't like to use Python. Moving on, so the audio line in, line out. The only thing that is not done in FMX on the audio side right now is the capture of audio. I never really wanted to do it much, although I might have to do it. But eventually you'll be able to capture audio. So if you want to do sampling and stuff like that with the Gen X, you'll have all the memory in the world to actually do it. The U is very limited. Actually, you cannot do it in the U. But the FMX is kind of limited in memory if you want to have good sampling rate. So the joysticks. So moving on to the joysticks, the power supply is an internal power supply, is an mini ATX power supply, very cheap. It's like 60, 80 watts. So I'm not going to talk much about this, but at least it's internal, so we don't have to worry about it. And there's no fan in it, so it's pretty silent. Well, it is silent. It doesn't do any noise. Maybe the switching power supply? Anyway, we're good. Okay, so some people have been bugging me about the joystick ports. Okay, I wanted to go full on joystick port because this is supposed to be a gaming machine, right? Well, that's how I see it. Graphics, sound for me is like games, okay? And the paradox is that so far most people have been doing OSS stuff. That cracks me up every single time. You know, that's the thing, you let it go and you just don't wonder and you don't ask for people to do anything because it's just going to go the opposite way you want them to go. But so far, that's basically what happened. People have been doing OSs, Forth, and gadgets, OS, and Mike's GUI, and it's like, it's crazy. Only a few people actually did some game stuff. Anyway, the thing is, with the NAS and SNS ports, they're pretty fairly easy to interface. The connectors are cheap. It's just serialized joysticks. And in that case, they are mutually exclusive. So you cannot have both at the same time. Well, actually, I think you can mux the port. So you could have one joystick in one port and possibly mux the other model in the other port. So you could do one model in one port, one model in the other port, and just scan and see, is there one there and one there, one there, one there, or you could pre-configure them. So that you could do. You can switch softwarely and say, this is going to be an SAS, SNS, or NS. A little bit of programming to be done on that side. But in a nutshell, a lot cheaper than put a USB. Don't get me started on the whole USBs. So I'm not going to start. Connectors are cheap. They look great. They're there. There's a space. Thank you very much. It's there. Doesn't mean that all computers will have them, but this one have. All right. So obviously we cannot go away putting joysticks and not putting DB9. So the DB9 are there. So two of these guys could do four. Well, I might put some switch or something. So we could do like 9 DB9 with 3 buttons that are Atari compatible. They are individually separated from the other group. So in theory, you could have 8 joysticks. Okay, 2 of those joystick ports will be connected back to the analog port to the Super I/O that supports the analog ports. You know, back in the day there was a DB15, same thing. So you could switch software to have one of those or 2 ports to have the analog ports. It was on the FMX, nobody uses them, but I brought it back, so it's there. People cannot complain that it's not all loaded. All right, so that's basically what I was saying there, that the people don't talk much about the analog portion. So we're getting in the board. Sorry, I'm gonna pause on this. Okay, I'm gonna check if there's any questions. Oh, that would be awesome. My God, where were you all this time? That's what we need, enthusiasm. Okay, so at this point, you know what? I'll let it run. Okay, I will start at the bottom here. Yes, it's a mini ITX style. Anybody who wants to put it into ITX enclosure, they can. They just have to be careful about a few things. First of all, you have all those flat connectors that goes to there's 3 different, well, actually 4 different assemblies. There's the floppy assembly, no, actually the SD card assembly, which is all the LEDs and the SD card that connects the ear. You'll have the Super I/O assembly that's going to connect the ear. And there is the joystick assembly here. And there's the audio amplifier that will be connected there, which will be screwed somewhere on the enclosure. I don't know where yet. This is the part I didn't do. All the audio amplification and the speakers are not there yet, but we'll see. So, anybody who wants to put all these boards inside, they'll have to figure a way to install them. All right, so moving on. So you have the ITX board. We'll have a couple of LEDs here for status inside when we're debugging or something. That might be useful. We have the two PS2 port. This is the push on, click in, click out. You have the headphone that are software programmable. This is something that we wanted to do with Peter at some point. We never did it, where you could have a couple of keys on the keyboard to lower the volume or not. You have the dip switches. You don't have the right color. They're supposed to be white. Okay, so here we're in this side is the audio section. So in this section we'll put one of the things that I was so fed up of with the FMX was to look for those parts. It's 50-50. Either it works, didn't work. I was tired to order batches of chips and most of them didn't work. I said, you know what, screw that. And that's why I created the GT2151 FPGA replacement. So anybody who's buying an Gen X will have those replacement part. So they're replication, but they sound a lot better. They sound a lot crisper. So if you're a huge fan of the original sound with the noise and everything, and the non-linearity of the DAC, then you can replace those parts and you'll be able to use real parts. So that's one of the things that I wanted to keep. So anybody who's ordering a unit will have the FPGA version of the 2151 and the 2612. Okay, keep that in mind. Like I said, you can buy the real thing, replace them, and if you don't want the FPGA version, then you just have to resell them. We're still going to have an OPL3. OPL3 are still very easy to find. I would say 90% of them usually work really well. The DAC as well, pretty easy to find. And then you'll have, so the DAC is here. There's a little board that goes with the GT2151. Something I had at this time is that I put some pots to actually adjust the volume and the levels of the 2612 and the 7649. I think, and I'm not sure if he's still there, but I'm sure Daniel will be very happy about that, because that was a problem at the beginning. My level of my audio was not proper, and a fix would be needed to get them at the proper level. So these are back, but with the synthetic version of them. Okay, again, if you want to replace them, up to you, you're good to go. The SID are back. If you have real SIDs, you want to put real SIDs, you want to put ARM SID, freaking SID, anything you want, you'll be able to do it. Okay, it's really up to you. I wanted to make it so you could enjoy putting all the parts you want in the system, right? I'm still going to have 2 instances of the Gideon SIDs inside the part. So Okay. I don't know what I did. Okay, awesome. All right, with 30 people, awesome, great. My God, awesome. All right, so let's recap. Awesome. Norman, you're there. Norman is the 288 sprites guy. He's awesome. Okay, so just to recap to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So 2151 is back with the synthetic version, the FPGA version, the 2612 back with the synthetic version. The OPL3 is real. The 7649 will have a version, an FPGA version and a real version. I might put more of these guys because they're really useful to create a lot of noise. And the SIDs are back, so put any SIDs you want. The fake one, the real one, I don't care. They're back. You can be in stereo. There'll be some jumpers where you can actually decide if you want to be mono or stereo, which one will be in which channel. So that should be able to help you out. There will be a jumper for 9 volt, 12 volt. This is what this, so there will be 2 fake SID, 2 real SID. The codec is there. And what I was talking about was the fact that there's 3 DACs, the DACs inside the codec and 2 more. And this is something I didn't do on the FMX. You can do sampling right now, but there's only 1 channel. And what I will probably do is that create multiple channels where they're going to be added in hardware, so you don't have to worry. So you have multiple channels of noise generation if you want to do. And the different DACs were basically to have different frequency. For example, if you want to sample at 44 on one and 42 on the other, something like that. You know, I'm going all the way on this one. So please, if you really like it, buy it so it can help me finish it. And well, I have to finish it, but you know, makes my life a little bit easier. I can go on vacation in 2 days and just take all your money and steal it. No, I'm not like that. You know that. Okay, so overall, the codec. Dude, don't say pick my controller. What the? No, I'm MIPS. I'm talking about like a R3000 or R4400. What are you talking about? Pick 32? No. I'm kidding. You can put anything. Okay, speaking of which, okay, so this is obviously the module connector in the center. And this is to put the module. Modules by default will come with a processor and some memories. I'll talk about it more later. But it's also, I really want to make it open for people to design their own if they want. The only hiccups with that is that there's a front end that needs to be done on the FPGA to interface it. So we would have to work together to make it work. But if people want to create their own processor, put their own processor, we could do it. I mean, all I want is for people to embrace the system and to go along with it, right? So moving on, I'll come back with the module thing when we get to the module. So we have the 2 connected DVI, 2 DACs, they're 2 separate. So in the reality, and that's the goal, and that's what I'm claiming I'm going to be able to do, is that the 2 can have 2 different resolutions. So you could have like a 640 by 480 in one and 800 by 600 in the other one, stuff like that. So I want them to be really, no, Daniel, don't do this. He's killing me. Please don't bring your 2020 stuff now. Okay, so yeah, so 2 different resolution, different speed. So 2 very separated system, but they might, like I said, they might be a little bit different. My vision about it is that you could have a minimalistic graphical system in one channel with very enhanced text feature, and the opposite in the other channel, which is a lot of graphical feature but very limited text feature, because they're kind of separated, and I overlay one on top of the other. Yeah, I have 2 banks of memory that I have 2 memory controllers on the video side, so I can actually separate them, do 2 different things at the same time without affecting the other. Which brings me to the memory. So in the system, you'll have right now 16 by 16, which means that it's 32 megabyte of, I could put a 32 meg by 16, we'll see. Ultimately, it's going to be maximum 64 megabyte in the system, okay? So it's plenty, okay? It's plenty, okay? Don't go and say, I want more. You're not going to get more, okay? It's plenty. People have created a lot more with a lot less. I should put a lot less in reality, more less than more. So don't ask for more, because the more you ask for more, the less I will put, okay? This is our deal in between you guys and me. The more people ask for more, the less I will put it. So be be warned, okay? Don't, I'll be vulgar now. Don't fuck around with me with, oh, I want more. No, if you want more, buy yourself a PC or go buy a Raspberry Pi. Okay, so we have two banks. These are 2 megs by 32. So 8 megs per channel that will be used separately for the video controllers. Yeah, probably somebody will put, it would be great somebody would put actually, what is the game that has been put on pretty much everything? I'm sure somebody will come up with it. Okay, so this is Vicky. Okay, so Vicky 3 will be this humongous block that will do 2 heads. One of the things I want to do, not Tetris, no, the one with the shooting, you know, to do, and it's like it's very raw in its graphics, and it's Doom, yes, Doom. Somebody will put Doom on that shit. Space Harrier would be great too. Anyway, because we have all the music, we'll have all the hardware. It's really cool. Crysis? I don't know Crysis. I'm not much of a gamer. Okay, I design hardware. Okay, so what I was going to say. Okay, so Vicky 3 is going to be this big, well, in that computer specifically, Vicky plays the role of Gabe. Gabe was the other chip in the FMX that was doing the system control, and Vicky is the graphical engine. When they're combined together, I call them FAT, like the Amiga, which is kind of nice, right? FAT Vicky 3 or FAT Vicky 2 is like Vicky 3. So basically, Vicky 3 is this enhanced version of Vicky 2, which will allows you to do higher resolution. The DMA will be a lot stronger. I'll probably put, well, probably I have to put, because people will come and here and chase me down and put me on the you know, with the cord and everything if I don't put some kind of blitter in there. I'll put a blitter in there. You can do some operation. So there's that. So a lot of DMA, but that's the fun part about this, because the 2 chips are integrated, then I can literally get the CPU to run, and I'm gonna come back to this later, but you can get code running and still get your data coming in and out from the video system to the RAM system, and it's gonna be great for audio as well, because there's some local local static RAM on the module. All of them will have some static RAM, not a lot, but still a lot, some memory, so you can actually, and I would urge people, you'll have a couple of megs, like maybe 2 or 4 megs of memory SRAM on the module, that you can actually get your code to run full speed on this without interruption. And you keep the static, the dynamic RAM, the system RAM, to deal with all your data, because it's very bursty in nature. It's very good for bursting in and out, transfer stuff in there and there. You know that. Any programmers who's done a little bit of work knows that. The SRAM is very good for random access, which is great for CPUs and code. That's why they use SRAM to do cache. This is why dynamic RAM is so shitty with the 816, because 816 requires a fetch every cycle, which is not the case with the 68000. So this is one of the thing people have to be, you know, have to design their thing properly. Anyway, so Vicky 3 will be the block we have. So tiles, bitmaps, sprites. Will we have more of these? I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe some modes. I think we have plenty of tiles. I think we have plenty of bitmaps. Some feature maybe to be able to invert, stuff like this. The one thing I wanted to add was the Bresenham line algorithm to do automatic line drawing and everything, okay? A little bit more 2D block movement around to help to do GUI stuff. It's not gonna be super advanced because I'm gonna spend a gazillion amount of hours on this, so I don't wanna do this. But I really wanna bring it to a next level, and there's also a third resolution that we will now need to support, but it's interesting because what was the resolution? So 640 by, I thought that 512. Yeah, because if you divide 10, because they all have the dual bit, like the double pixel doubling. So with 1024, by 768, you would have a resolution of 512 by something-ish, or 3 something, which is really close to what the Amiga had. So the line drawing algorithm is something I wanted to put in there. That's something I wanted to do in there. There'll probably be some transparencies. And in the case of the more advanced modules, the 32-bit modules, we could actually, thanks, Scott, I'll take your help. I'll use your help. Listen, the way I think about it is the faster you go, the higher resolution you go, games usually don't bother with tiny pixels. Just removes the whole fun, unless you want to do the game that was the multimedia game, one of the first that was very popular. I don't remember. Are we still good with the audio? Yes, we are. So we're still good. Okay, so we'll see. I might ask what could be good. I need to make, okay, so basically in Wiki 3, have the line algorithm, probably some mathematics stuff in there. Okay, this is what I'm looking for to do in the short term, okay? I don't want to put too much because otherwise you're going to lose me and then you're going to miss. Thank you very much, missed. You're going to miss. Thank you very much, missed. Missed, yes. With high resolution, you can do missed stuff, you know? Now that you have an hard drive and everything, you could do missed, yes. My God, you're good. Yeah, we could do Battlezone. We could do all these great games with the vector, of course. So I want to get the DMA to be better. Right now, the different layers are probably okay with what we have. I want to make the DMA with more blitter functions. I want the DMA to be more efficient. I want to be able to do DMAs from different, like the IO DMA from doing audio in, audio out, codec output, stuff like this. You have to realize that, okay, so the DRAM is fast, but it's not super fast. So we're still dealing within the realm of 1990s system. Like I said, probably Amiga 2000, Amiga 3000 type of style of audio or transfer speed and stuff like this. So aside of that, transparency, I would like to add the tiles with transparency. In terms of, there's math in there, there's floats. I know the 46s and this 68040 will have floating point internally. Although I could put an EC version, there's no float. We'll see how much space I have. I know Peter has been requesting wanted to do some transcendental floating for the basic, and something I might add at some point. Again, I want to be able to help people create more, but I don't want to put too much of it either. Okay, I don't want to snuff out the creative juice and people's idea to make the platform to do awesome thing. Okay, so yes, limitation is the mother of creativity, but I want to be able to give enough so we have a lot of fun. So you need 288 sprite top to Norman. He knows how to do it. I don't think I'm going to put 128 sprites or stuff like that. I don't think it's really necessary at this point. Again, it depends on the bandwidth because that's the thing. I could do something to do a system that could kind of utilize, let's say, for example, you use one bitmap plane, but you use 2 tile plane, but you would like to have more sprites. So I could literally give you more sprites depending what is on, what is off. So you could literally use the bandwidth like a dynamic bandwidth usage. So if you have everything on, you have 32 sprites. If you have everything off, you want sprites, then you could have 256 sprites, something like this, right? Well, there'll still be a limit, but you could do something. The other thing I want to get improvement on is the collision system. Okay, it's very basic right now. It's not super cool. I'm not super happy about it, but it's there. It's not, like I said, because it works with the plane collision. It doesn't work within the same sprites, within the same lanes. So it's kind of, if you have the sprites on one lane, you cannot detect their collision together because of the way the engine is working. So we'll work on that. Otherwise, to finish the story, here you have the whole 65816 subsystem. I have added one flash So if the kernel becomes bigger, and people want to flash in their own OSs with their own GUI thing, they need more space. They could actually use the dip switch to switch between one and the other. We have an extra flash. It was there early on. I removed it because there was no point. Now it seems to be, it makes more sense. And I double up on the memory. So you'll have 8 megabyte of SRAM for the 816. And the reason I couldn't expand, I mean, the dynamic RAM will be there, but will be as a paging system. Because even at 40 megahertz, if you consider the time it takes to go fetch a byte in random access with the DRAM, I don't have enough time to get the data out in time to serve this 816 without adding a wait state. That means that every data you fetch, or you would with a random access the system RAM with the 816 when it's on, you would be at half bandwidth. So this is very important, you keep that in mind. So all your code, SRAM. All your data, DRAM. Always. And that's why I kept the SRAM and I increased the size of the SRAM. So you have half of the memory just be SRAM, right? And the bottom half we'll find like a 64K or a couple of banks that we can use to page the SRAM. But it doesn't mean that the dynamic RAM, the DMA controller could work with full range of the memory space we have. It's going to be a little bit of some kind of X16 ways of doing things. I'm going to talk about something. Please post your feedback. This is something I thought about while I was doing the Gen X. But again, it goes a little bit against where I want to go. But, you know, I'm always about trying to satisfy more people, but, you know, to a limit. Since the very beginning, I focused on having the 816 only, not the the emulation 86502. And I thought at some point, hey, would people be interested to go more like an X16 ways? But that's what I'm saying. Instead of going up into the big CPUs, I would be going down in the smaller one. Because there was always a way, I mean, I would need to reprogram a good portion of the FPGA, well, the interface to the FPGA to deal with 64K only. It would be more like a X16 ways of doing things. So if there's any interest in that, let me know. To be able to run 6502. But everything will be into a window, a page somewhere that you would be able to flip-flop your stuff. Not sure if it's really that interesting considering that there's so many people doing it already. But I'm just putting it out there. Not going to bother myself too much with it. Anyway, so this is where the 816 subsystem is. The two flashes, there's two chips on the top, two chips on the bottom. This is the bulk of what the 816 is. And finally, we have the 2.5-inch hard drive interface here. And I guess at some point we'll be able to do more than 2 gigs of memory. Thank God, because we'll have a kernel that'll be able to support more. I think Peter is working hard at working on putting the FATFS system with the C kernel, and we'll have full access and all the partition and all that stuff. Yeah, thanks, Matt. I know, but that's my nature. I'm fighting this desire to please everybody. And it's a very difficult thing to do. But I'm working on it. I'm really trying. But at the same time, guys, I'm trying to be transparent, okay? I'm all about transparency. I might be moody sometimes. I might be like that's okay. Move system is great. Thanks for coming. I might be moody. I have my opinions. I'm very strong, opinionated about things, but I'm really sweet. Peter, I'm really sweet. I just don't have time with stupidity, okay? People are driving me nuts sometimes. I'm all about integrity, transparency, and honesty. And maybe it's hard to listen sometimes, but this is what I am. So you'll have the real story with me, okay? I'm not gonna bullshit you around and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so please forgive me. Sometimes I'm blunt, but I don't know how to do anyway. I cannot try to fleece you in doing things. I'm going to tell you right away. If it's great, it's great. If it sucks, well, I'll be nice with you, but you'll know that I'm trying to tell you that it sucks. But at the same time, I don't want to go into, it's fully stuffed. I know there's a lot of stuff in there. It's for you to use. I could limit it. I could remove all the sys and everything, and people would be, The good news is that there's nowhere to go after that. Well, there are the place to go. Trust me. But I'm just saying that right now with that platform, with that setup, I'm not going to go and do something better or something. I will do something different. Well, different, close to be different. But what I'm trying to say is that it's all there for you to play with it and try to get the most out of it. Okay. Just having a platform that nobody used the audio chips that everybody worship is just absolutely a sacrilege in itself. I don't even understand why. But anyway, we'll get there. There needs to be more bluntness in the world. Yeah, I know, right? But people have difficulty dealing with bluntness. Honesty is a very, very rare commodity these days. It's a very, what's the word? Currency. Honesty is a very rare currency. We thrive and we on lies and lies and lies and lies and lies and hypocrisy and conveniencies and everything. I don't want to get into this. I will lose some of you. Okay, let's move on. All right. So if I keep playing, I let the video play. I did this in Adobe Premiere, and they don't track. I have to do all these tracking by hand. That was a nightmare. The JPEG port is still there, by the way. Okay, so first module to come out, the SEC000. For anybody who doesn't know the SEC is a static version and the 3.3 volt version of the 68000. Thank God there's a 3.3 volt version. The reason I'm saying that is because putting translator is always tricky. It fucks up the signal, the levels are not good, they start oscillating. It's not having to put any converter, 3.3 volts, 5 volt to 3 volts is a godsend, but it's not. I'm not going to get away with it. I'll have to do it with the 6830. But the idea is to start with something simple, to go incrementally into the complexity of the system. I'm sure a lot of you will take the 68,000. It's the starting point to get into something else than 816. For me, for Peter to do the kernel, that will be the start. It's easy, okay? There's no mysteries about it. There's only one signal as I need to take care of. It's the DTAC, which is very sensible. The same way the ready signals in the 816 is very, very tricky. That's the trickiest signals on that fucker, sorry. No offense to the WDC team. My God, this thing is a nightmare to drive. The DTAC is the same. I'll have to be careful. Otherwise, because the cycle takes so many clock cycles, I have plenty of time to do a lot of things. That's why the Amiga was so cool, because the chipset was stealing cycles all the time. They didn't care. They had 10 clock cycle to do a lot of things. So this is the entry level. So for any of you getting the unit early on, if you want to start playing right away, that would really, I would really like you to go into this idea that being able to start earliest to get us going is the best idea. Some people are talking, there's a Vincent, there's two Vincent in the FreeTOS community. So there's the founder, I think, and there's the other Vincent that is a French person. I think they're both French anyway, but somebody who's really onto it. And I would think that even with a 68,000, you could do something with FreeTOS, even if it's not a 6830. It's really an incremental approach I want to take. So the board is already laid out already. Okay, aside a few things I might have to change, it's already laid out. So this is a done deal, and it's really easy to start doing it, to work on it. Because every model brings its complexity. You know, there's no cache, there's no MMUs, thank God. Very simple. So I want to move on and start with this one. So if you want to start with a system, and from the moment you have a motherboard, you want to start doing something, get a 68,000 modules. This is the first one that will come with it. The other ones will follow. I pretty much have to get them made all together, but there might be some tricky things to do. Anyway, every modules, like I said, will come with 4 megs of RAM and 4 megs of flash. So plenty of space to put an OS. And you can flash that flash with the debug mode. Okay, this is how it's going to work. Very easy. You have your binary, connect to the chipset. It'll just put the processor in reset and just reflash the flash to put your code in it. So easy peasy. This is going to be working from day one. This is amongst the things I need to do before I release the unit. So this summer will be about putting all these things in place, mainly putting the DRAM controller for the key and changing the debug mode to adapt with the new processors and everything and make sure it boots and works. Everything else will just be adapting to a 1632-bit wide bus. There will be changes, but the core of Viki will be there and the sound will still be there as well. So moving on. Like I said, the 6830 was the next logical choice. 6820 was like, could be used. I mean, unless somebody claim, oh, I want 6820, I'm gonna, people will buy it like crazy. I don't think so. 6830 seems to be the sweet spot. Although I've been told that this CPU has problems, or that was the one without the floating point, but there's still a lot of computers that were based on it. So I think the 6830, throughout the whole family of 68,000 is still by far the middle ground. Okay, not super complex, not super too easy. It's like people will be happy with this. I'm starting with the EC version, easy peasy, and then after that I'll see if I can introduce the PGA version and so on and so forth. Okay, something we could do to ease the transition. Maybe you could do an exchange program in modules and everything, right? I mean, to an extent. I mean, the community is still pretty small. I'm trying to accommodate people in their desire, because one of my job, even if I know I'm a pleaser, but one of my job is to enable you. Right? Anybody who's really serious about committing to do something with the machine, I need to make your job easy. The job of starting, not doing their job. So later there'll be a different socket. I wanted to, again, cut the development time, not to worry about stupid things that I didn't have to worry about. Just cut it short, get it started, get a CPU, get it running, get it booted, put some flash, get some code running, get some graphics, then you're on. Then we can see how we can make things a little bit faster or slower or anything else later. So, moving on. 6830. Okay. I thought that getting into the 68, I have a sweet spot for the 68,000. No contest. I'm not a great fan of the Intel families of processors. I think they just started with a little piece of turd and they just created like a humongous, monstrous turd. But the early days of the Intel was shitty. I think the 8088 was really shitty. 286s and everything. But there's a sweet spot again. I think the 46 amongst all the processors, the Intel family is probably the best suited for this. Not too fast, not too slow, not too complex, so I don't need to have like 20 chipsets. Easily interface. This is the embedded version. It's 3.3 volts, easy peasy, and we stay within the realm of 1990s computing. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Okay, so no segregation in the Foenix family. I'm sure some people will have fun with it. Again, I just hope that nobody turns it into a PC. Although, again, we could probably transport we could probably do a free ski, a ski free. Although we can do a ski free without having 46s, I get it. And anyway, the strategy, it's really to have a base. The strategy is really to have, or the idea behind this, like instead of having a processor where you're trying to stuff it with hardware, you have all the hardware necessary. You have all the hardware necessary, which is plenty, okay? If somebody cannot make something great out of this machine, I'm going to shoot myself, okay? Guys, it's all your dreams come true, okay? You have the power of an arcade machine hardware system in terms of graphics. It's loaded with sounds, I don't know why, music people that doing chipstones don't have one on their desk right now, although there's no software for it. Hopefully there will be soon. So it's only a matter of, and again, the idea of changing the processor is about you having a preference and finding your calling in it. And I'm sure some people love the 486 or the 4, they like the Intel. And yes, you're right, Ben. Yes, it's so common that, I mean, DOS 2.0 is free source, is open source by Microsoft. WBasic is open source, okay, by Microsoft today. You can go on their GitHub, you'll find it, it's there. And it's an assembly. How easy could it be to make it work, right? Oh, there you go, it's there, it works, right? So for me, no questions that Intel needed to be there. But again, am I going to start designing 20 different modules on Intel? No, because after the 46s, it starts to become really, really tricky, too complex. I'm not going there. I think that the 46, the X62, although I think there's a DX4, this is like the range I would like to stay. This is the power the machine has. More than that, then everything else will suffer. So moving on, same thing, local memory, SRAM memory, so you're gonna go super fast, no waiting time. And finally, at the end of the presentation, I talked about the RISC-V. The RISC-V will be a board exactly like this, but an FPGA. Anybody who knows the RISC-V knows that it's a super Harvard architecture, which means that there's a memory, there's a bus for the code memory, and there's a memory for the data memory. And usually what the people do is that, or most company worked, because analog devices used to have a chip based on the super Harvard, they had a DSP that has data memory and code memory. It's super efficient because you can fetch all at the same time, super fast. But what they tend to do is usually to join them together out of, it's more easy to interface to a single block of memory. I found one on open cores in the RISC-V that had the two separate things, and I might use it and I might integrate it this way. Might not have a ton of memory, but it could be like you could have your code memory and your data memory, or figure out a way to be able to have access to both anyway. But I'd like to have one. This is something I've been having on my mind for a while, and I think this is something we should have. And again, for the sake of enlarging the family of users of the machine. Okay, so because this is my job. My job is to find ways to find more, to put more eyeballs on it, to get more people connected to it. I mean, who knows, RISC-V could be a great school type learning computers. I mean, even if it's not a RISC-V. I always thought these machines would be great for teaching people how to use CPUs and program them. Anyway, so this is the RISC-V idea. I probably comment at the end. It's an FPGA board. The other thing as well is the FPGA board that I'm concerned about is the fact that, I have an FPGA. Oh, I'll put a 68,000 core in it. Okay, moving on. Finally, the closing shots, where everything is encased again. And this is what the system is. So now you know about the philosophy, you know about the vision, you know about where things are going. So at the end of the story, I don't know if people actually watched the end. I think some people skipped on it. Where I'm actually telling people, well, the message I'm sending out is like, okay, we have this chance again to develop and to create new things. Yeah, we can recycle some. I think it's important to let people understand that, there's ways to make transform them minimalistically and being able to get some people in. I get it, but I hope people can really get on and build new things, really new things, new vision, new ways of doing things. We're so enslaved our ways of doing things. It's incredible. My God, we're enslaved into them. So it's the message at the end is like, let's be free again. Let's fuck IBM, fuck Xerox, fuck all these people. Let's do it my way, right? If I don't like the GUI with the windows with the X on the top, you know what? Put it on the bottom corner instead. That kind of thing. This mentality that we have to do the windows the same way, or, that's what I'm talking about. So at the end I say, well, that's the time to rise again. Don't make the same mistake of the past. So don't start recycling shit. Just make new mistakes. Just try new things. There's a lot of things that actually happened in the past and they were forgotten because for different reasons. And I'm sure Gadget will find herself in there. She talked about a lot of things at the beginning of the project. A lot of ideas, OS 9, I think it was called, that could be, there's a lot of great ideas that just went unnoticed because it was not pushed by corporate corporatism and everything. So maybe we could grab these things and make them 2020 worthy and use them again and, be creative again. So that's my message. I want to go farther than just say, I'm building a machine, there you go, you sell it and it's all good. No, there's a mission, there's an idea behind that. Yeah, don't let laziness dictate your creative choice. Please do the work. You'll be so feeling better at the end. You'll be like, oh, I'm so proud. I mean, ask Norman. Norman is the crab person. Yeah, greatness comes from hardship, not from cutting short and saving times. Be great and make that machine your own. That's my message. And I want more people to come on, to join in, to bring in their ideas. And I'll try to be really low profile, not instigate too much, fight within the group. You can ignore me, by the way. So at the end of the video, like I said, it's like I'm talking about the modules. Actually, the SCC will be 20, it's not 16, a little bit faster. The DX2, the 6830, the RISC-V, then the 6840 a little bit later. The 640 brings its own set of, it's a little bit bigger. It brings its own set of complexity. I'm going to stop there. I don't want to go 68 or 60. I think they're quite compatible. I couldn't make it, but it would be like a lot larger. You know what? This is too much. 68 or 40, I think is plenty. We don't need more. But in terms of other processors, if other teams, other groups would like to be interested to develop with other processors, some people want to develop their own cards. I'll make the room for to make it happen. Right? I want to make it easy for people to interface the machine. I want it to be open to a certain degree. I will talk about the FPGA source code. So at some point I'll make it source code available, the schematic, the enclosure, all these things. We'll see how it goes. In terms of FPGA, this is where I kind of draw the line. The reason for this is obviously because of consistency. Okay. I wouldn't say no to have somebody that would want to join in on the FPGA, consider that the person would be really like a pro and everything could help. That I would be open to, so I could, download and dump some of that stuff away on somebody else. The reason I don't want to release it is because I don't want for it to change to the point where the software will change. Like a dramatic, she did that, but it was crappy, we'll do it a different way. That type of thing. Or recycle it into a Mr. Box or something. I mean, with the schematic, somebody could actually do it. That's the funny part. But it doesn't mean that at some point, my idea was at some point find some custodians of the source code, somebody who could curate it, who could give it to, that could keep it. So if something happens to me, then that person could release it, then the thing would not be lost. This is important to me to not, keep it to myself, and that if something happens and you're done, you're cooked, and everything dies. So that's I'll probably find a couple of people to give it to, so they can keep it safekeeping. So things goes awry, they can release it. And then the platform can live on, and somebody will come and make it better. The other possibility, well, it's not a possibility, something I'm thinking about is that maybe within a year or two, when there's more, the idea is that possibly at some point when there's more software that supports the machine, where kind of the design is kind of locked in, then I might release it and say, okay, here it is, it's open. Some people might want to make it better for the sake of making it better, add some features, whatever, but at least a certain amount of time for it to be, there's so much stuff on it that changing it becomes like kind of stupid. Just because, you know what, bugs with those systems is what brings them their texture, their personality. So even if they're bugs, there's some stuff sometimes that you can go around. It's what gives the platform personality. So perfection is not something I'm looking forward to do. I just want to bring something that works, and I certainly want people to use it, because that's how we find bugs. And you know how I can tell that when I'm putting new features, people don't use them? Because they don't complain about it till they decide to use it, and there's a bug and there's a bug. I say, okay, you're the first one to use it. Yeah, I just want more users. Please believe in it. I believe in it. And I think the Gen X will be really awesome. Opening up to other processor will really make it interesting. My goal is really to get this thing out as soon as possible, to bring a module as soon as possible so people can get their hand dirty. I think some people are actually doing some emulation right now to support the 68,000, which is great. I mean, obviously having an emulation platform early on is great, but it takes some time. But if people want to join in, please join in to help. Vicky pretty much known, although we'll have to shuffle the register a little bit to fit the 68,000 model. Otherwise, it's there, and it will only exist and work out and stay if you're getting on board and you're investing in it. And I hope people could invest as much as I am investing in it. Designate a cert. Okay, Ben, you've been asking about the dual CPU. Okay, I'll be answering that questions. If you have other questions, guys, please putting in the queue. I will answer them from now on. I don't think I have anything else to say. I sent out I'm more like an evangelist right now, sending out my message of peace and goodness and virtues. Ben, the reason, okay, so early on, I have a pretty kick-ass FPGA. It's pretty loaded. I use like 500 IOs right now. It's a lot of IOs. The dual system requires a lot of IOs. It just happened that I am at the limit of the IOs, and what's going to happen is possibly that I'm going to run out of them, because I realized this week that the 6840 requires more pinnage than the 68030. And despite the fact that the connector on the motherboard has enough connector to satisfy the 68040, I'm going to have to share some signaling in between the 65816 and the 68,000. So fundamentally, that means that if I'm sharing, you cannot use them at the same time. The only trick I could pull, and this is a big trick, and I'm not sure I'm going to spend a lot of time on this, is that you could possibly maybe, because fundamentally, if I didn't have that IO problem, like the pinnage of the FPGA, and I could have full address and data and control on one, and full address and control on the other one, I could literally make them both work at the same time. However, I would have to go and do a share resources, like a Sega Genesis or something like this. The 8-bit system would do audio only, and the 32-bit system would be doing, graphic only. And they would have like a mailbox they could talk to each other. So I've been doing a lot of research, trying to do right now. I mean, the last week or so, I've been dealing with the whole marketing aspect of all this. I didn't have a lot of time to do anything else, but I've been looking into the 6840 because I was looking forward to do it later, but people started to be interested in it early on. So in order to not shoot myself in the foot, I started looking into the 6840. There's about 10, 15 more signals in the 640 than there's in 68430, which is a lot, because with the connector, the way it was designed right now, I was covering my spread for all the processors I've talked about so far. But the 6840 just pushed the envelope a little bit further. So I'm running out of pin. So I need to be clever about how I'm going to not waste those pins. So right now, I think they will have to be shared. The only way would be to run the 6860 possibly in 6502 mode, and maybe have a limited amount of memory and just say, dude, you're just going to run some code and just run some resources just run some, have 64K of RAM, a little bit of code that you can dump and buy the 68,000, for example, and say, well, you just have access to all the audio, all the chiptunes audio, and say, stop, go, whatever, and you just do like an arcade game board, just do audio, right? So I will try to gear up the board design to do that, okay? I'm not promising anything, okay? If I could have shared if I didn't have to share anything, I would be okay to do it. but later. Okay, so don't count on it from day one. Day one, you'll have 816 system that is like a U or like an FMX, like a very stuffed FMX, and an FMX-EX really, and the 6860 system, which is a 68,000 base system. But you have to, again, you'll have different FPGA load for the 68,000 because it's a 16-bit system, not a 32-bit wide. The 6830, this is where the big gun starts, right? It's like 32-bit wide for memory and 32-bit wide for addressing. So this is where we separate the children from the adults, right? So even that will require some changes. So I'll probably do things that will go from, anyway, we'll see from there. The addressing changes, everything changes. The core stays the same, but how, because everything was addressed with 8-bit, now it's addressed with 32-bit. Anyway, the FPGA will be big enough to accommodate all of this, but I will start with individual subsystem. You just have the same hardware. So once you can enable the sprite the same way on one system than the other, that's the point. You'll address the music the same way. So the idea is that ultimately you could create a software in C, and C is the key here, I guess. Create in software in C, and you'll be able to run it on the 46, the 68,000, the 630, so on and so forth. Unless you don't want to get your stuff to go across all the different platforms. It's kind of weird, but it's a new idea. We'll see where it goes and what. And I feel that over time, people will have their preferences in terms of what they want, what they don't want. Okay, what modules come on top of the other. There will be an automatic elimination of all the resources, or the things that people like, people don't like, and we'll go from there. So that's it, guys. Any other questions at this point? I think I pretty much covered everything. I'm going to look at my list. So vision, philosophy, intro. So this is my life, basically 24/7. I put a donation button. Any donation will be really appreciated because I'm not selling anything right now. I mean, aside of this Gen X, it's pretty much the only thing I'm selling. The U is stranded because I need to redesign it to change the FPGA because there's no parts. And that's one good thing about that system. You know why, guys? Because I'm using old parts, and those old parts are not subject to being not available. They're really available. Oh, that touching a point. I'm going to talk about this before I stop. So what is going to happen? So I'm telling you. So it's full on working on this 24/7 on this. For the people who've ordered joystick stuff, it's coming. I made a boo-boo on the board. I need to fix it. So it's going to come out soon. The schedule is that I want to get this out by September, October. I will probably have a mock-up during the summer. I probably have some few boards early on that I need to share with a few alpha board that I need to share with my friend Peter. I could put in place also let me know what you think. If you want to, because people have bought the system and I would like to deliver a fully working system, which might be a version B. Probably I usually do 2 boards. But if anybody is willing to pay a little bit of extra to have an early version, like to really get dirty on it, don't buy it if you're not going to do it, you don't have any time, but you really want to get on with it quickly and help debug the board and participate into the debugging purpose and try things. And if you're willing to pay for an alpha board, and no case, just a board that you can run and run things, let me know. The donation button, I'm cutting back to the money. So that would be happening this summer. Okay, I would like, my schedule is to give to Peter, which is my kernel person, which is awesome. That's Rob, that's great. I'm going to talk about Patreon as well. Okay, so alpha board. So if you like the alpha board idea, I'm talking about early on, like you're drudging and the shit thing's not going to work. You have to write some code, test it. My goal is really to get a platform to Peter to start doing the kernel. Okay, so if anybody is interested, tell me. I will add an item in the store for an alpha adopter. Doesn't mean that if you order a final product, you'll have another board, which is the final board with everything, because I'm sure I'm going to. But it's going to be just the main board. It might not be Super IOs or stuff like this. Just the main board with the modules. You can boot, get some videos, stuff like this, right? Very basic, okay? So that's the idea. If you have other ideas, please share with me. I'll listen to them. I definitely need to listen more to you guys. Money-wise, okay, I started a Patreon page. I'm not super comfortable with Patreon yet. I need to understand how it works. I put a couple of things in there. The idea is probably that I will probably try to document more the development of the Gen X, try to put some videos, try to get some money that way. If you want to make a donation, please do. If you are looking for to buy the unit, please do it sooner than later. That helps a lot as well. Passed on the word. And yeah, I think one of the things that is great is that there's a great core of development that's been in the past, because the Gen X is based on the FMX and the U together, and we're not starting from scratch. So the overhead to get something working quickly should be pretty short. And I want to get hardware in your hands, guys. I want you to shine and have fun, and it's amazing to see what people can do. The donate button is on the main site, the first page of the site. The Patreon, I will try to start stuffing Patreon sooner than later, and we can go from there. I actually put a tier in Patreon, so you can actually, somebody else's idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's like it's a pretty high amount, but it's like if you want to pay to buy. So you're investing your money, and what you get is when you reach the amount of the level of the money you want, the material you want, then you literally bought a unit. So it's not so much a donation, but it's like a pay per month type of thing. If you want to keep paying after that, it's up to you, but you could do something like that. The different tiers on Patreon is really like, you'll be updated constantly about what's going on, but I would like to have a channel where I do streams on the technicality of the system, the schematic, a little bit of FPGA design possibly, do a little bit of what I didn't want to do, but I'll do it just to keep people interested and bring more. So I'll make that effort, because there's a good portion of the design done anyway, so it's not like I have to start from scratch. So that's about the money. Okay, let me see. So T-Turbo 128 says, is there any thoughts about having one OS for all the 68 varieties to same creating OSs? Well, I mean, I think there's, from the get-go, I think there's the FreeTOS that is available today, that exists, that we could port. This is the Atari recycled or redesigned clean room version. I think about this is the clean room version of the Atari OS. I really like this idea because it is, since there was so much sound, so much music done on the Atari OS, if we can recycle some of the software that actually worked with the OS instead of going directly to the hardware, maybe we could recycle a couple of software in there. So I know Vincent is really interested in doing it. Definitely a lot of potential. As far as somebody, I don't know if you're talking about something brand new from scratch or not. It's up to you to decide, guys. Anybody who has a great idea, wants to develop something on the platform, please be a leader and lead it the way and find the people and make it happen. I will give you everything you need, okay? So I don't know. So the 46 is the same thing. For me, 46 could turn into anything. Please don't put Windows on this. Create your own OS, whatever. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of, Ben, you said, well, it looks like I'm going to have to really juggle some cycles. Yes. Yeah, thank you for praying. The donation button is on the main page. I think it's on the web. Yeah, probably should be Patreon or something. Okay, so yeah, Patreon, this is, and if you have any ideas, guys, maybe some swags, maybe some merch. I thought about making like a mug with the new logo and maybe a design, like a line drawing design of the Foenix, the Gen X box, a little bit like Martin with his marble machine. I like that style. I thought about it like maybe a cap or something. If you want some merch, some stuff for Patreon, let me know. These are all good ideas, but I just don't know. I mean, I don't want to invest, half a day to put that on and nobody really gets into it. That's a bit frustrating on my end, is that there's just so much I can do. So if you want to pass on the information, pass on the word, please, please. And if there's any German amongst us, no offense to the German, but somebody needs to rise and to tell them to be okay with the duty, the duty payment and taxes and everything. Germans has Germans have a thing about being very on defense about buying the unit because of the fees. Something else also, guys, okay? I'm offering two versions of the enclosure, the kit and the fully assembled. It's $100 less, and there's no soldering involved, okay? If for some reason you're worried about the duties at the borders and everything, please, if you're in Europe, save yourself some money, get the kit. Probably easier for me. I'm saying that because it's easier for me. Probably and be fun for you. Up to you. So at the end of the day, the enclosure will be, the plastic part will be 3D printed for now. The middle parts will be aluminum anodization. All the panels on the side, they will probably be like magnetized so you can remove them. There will probably also like a frame inside, aluminum frames inside as well, like a case so we can hold everything together. Like I said, the design of the enclosure is not quite finished, so when it's finished, you'll see it. But that's about it. So building in a kit should be fairly easy. Okay, this is going to be new to me, but I think it's a great way to ship the modules, to shape the box without having too much problem at the border. And yourself some money. So I don't have to build it for you. It's going to be done. Okay, so free toss, I think it's a great idea. I think the platform would help increasing the capacity of free toss, I think. Although it supports already like fancy software, fancy hardware, but not the hardware I saw was not super gamey oriented or anything. So I think there will be a little bit of work on the driver, but I think we offer things that most platforms don't offer, like the hard drive, the floppy, and everything. I think probably the floppy. But anyway, there's a little bit of driver. Yeah, Thomas. Thomas, you're a German person, right? Please tell your fellow people to not be so worried about the duty cost. Uh, all right, Danielle, thank you very much. Danielle is one of the great alpha people that were there from the very, very beginning. He's been doing some trackers, Tetris. He's the supporter. He's the one created pretty much from a crappy piece of software that created the Foenix ID. He's been working on this game creator things. That's his work. So thanks, Dan. It's awesome. He's one of the first that started using the video. He did a VGM player. So look into his GitHub. Super awesome. Is Peter still there? Peter's gone, possibly. So, oh, Detlef. Yeah, Peter is also a great member of the founder the team. He's my go-to guy. He's my rock. I mean, I'm his rock sometimes as well, I guess. I think he's very excited about his kernel in C. I think he's been doing a lot of progress in a short amount of time, and I mean, it's to be expected with a C compiler that works. And I'm really excited to see this kernel that be working working on all the platforms. And if you will, I'll give you my ideas about how I would see. You know, I was very impressed, and I was always been very befuddled and amazed by the Silicon Graphics OS and user interface at the beginning when you boot and everything. And I thought it would be great if we could replicate something like that, you know, like a text but graphical interface. And I thought it was so cool. So if it inspires anybody to do something, I talked to Peter about it. So yeah, Peter has been a great supporter. He is the Foenix in, you know, fully, and he's still there, and I'm glad he is. So if anything comes up and you have any issues, Peter is your guy. There's Gadget who's been doing her stuff as well. She's been working on the internet drivers. Hopefully we'll see that soon. I don't know if she's still around. So otherwise, yeah, I know Thomas, right? It's you guys are driving, the German people are driving me insane. You know, oh, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. Oh, the duty will be too expensive. And you know, people from Denmark, from Sweden, from they don't give a shit. They just buy that stuff. It's like, okay, cool. I want one. Let's buy one. UK are a little bit the UK border agent are a bit. They want to get all the money they can. So, yeah, shipping. Listen, guys, just to give you an idea, if you don't know, shipping an FMX cost like, or used to cost, because the Canadian dollar became stronger now, but back in the day it was costing about $80-90 to ship a unit in Europe. Okay, so I know shipping costs can be shitty, but, and this is just like, you know, jackass, you know, traveling. It's not even UPS, although I feel that maybe I should ship my stuff UPS now. But anyway, so just give you an idea. It costed like $40 to ship US, but it cost like $90 to ship in Europe, anywhere in Europe. So any other ARM 2? Maybe the old ARM could be an interesting choices as well. But again, I'm not going to focus on those fancy, because they're fancy, right? The MIPS, the ARMs are very, very special. There was another one, the Spark. The Spark. All these processors are so cool, but very special. I don't know if the platform would be, you know, good enough to be able to interface to them. But anyway, could put some DSPs in there. Who knows? But I think we're covering the spread pretty large with the 46. 46 and I think the RISC-V to have something, you know, 2020-ish. All the most of the 68,000, the 46, I think we're covering our spread. I think we'll have plenty of fun with that. Matt, you're saying are keyboards and mouse included with enclosure Gen X computers? The answer to that is no. Same reason as the power supply. There's no USB. Okay, forget about USB. Okay, there's no USB to plug any device at all. Okay, I will never design any USB port on that, any system I will design. So don't ask. And I'm sorry. Okay, it goes against anything about everything that I'm doing right now. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like an anachronism. I'm doing the serial port in the back. That's where I draw the line. Because yeah, you need a CPU to deal with the protocol of USB. So you need to have a microcontroller that would have to talk to a serial port. And it's like, why am I putting a microcontroller into 1990s CPU system? Doesn't make any sense. And I'm sorry, it's the PS2. I mean, even David Murray came to that conclusion. No, it's not happening. Sorry. All right, I'm looking in your eyes and saying no. Okay, the keyboard and the mouse, the reason is that I don't buy in bulk, so I don't have any rebate. So I'm buying the keyboard full price. I would have to ship it to you and pay the shipping on it. So it's more weight, more shipping. You have to pay the duty on it. And at the end of the day, before I didn't care so much because I wanted to offer a full solution. But at the end of the day, it was costing me a fortune. You know, I did this CPU FMX with special edition. I sold 4 of them with the keyboard. I didn't make any money with this, very barely. I thought I would make some, no. Because the cost of shipping, the weight, the shipping and everything costs more. Listen, if you're willing to pay $300-400 more to get the keyboard and the mouse with it, I will source them with them. But otherwise, it's just a lot of money wasted into something you can get yourself and you get the best price. The only reason I would do that is either I would have a unit with a keyboard, or I would sell so many of these puppies that then I could buy in bulk and then I could offer it and then I could sell them with them. That's the only reason. It doesn't make any sense at all. Yes, Rob. Yeah, Rob, Peter explained it. For me, an FPGA is an ASIC. It's an upgradable ASIC. Okay? Otherwise, there's no way I can do logic. Are we going to stay within the realm of putting dips and we're not going to be able to do this. So for me, I always saw it that way. I talked about it 3 years ago. An FPGA is an ASIC. It's not by any means an FPGA. Oh, I can put anything in it. That's why I'm kind of very so hyped up about, oh, give me the schematic. I'll redesign this FPGA. I'll put anything in it. It's not, no. This is a specific CPU. It's not a Mr. board. Mr. board is an FPGA board. You can put anything in it. That's what an FPGA is about. But in this case, and that's why I'm locking down the FPGA design, and that's why I'm so reluctant about giving away all the information, is because somebody with a schematic and everything can design anything they want. They have all the memory in the world. They have all the resources in the world. They could build their own. So that's the reason. So should I stifle the possibility of others creating something with the base? I don't know. You tell me. Would you rather work on something that is stable or work on something that changes all the time? Having a Mr. board where you can put any core on it is great. It's an absolutely amazing solution, and it exists now. There's no point. Okay, I know David doesn't like the FPGA. He doesn't want to have any FPGA, although he did end up having one in his system, no matter how he didn't want to have it. Although I think he didn't want to have to deal with it, because 65 people did the same. They have one FPGA, plop, and they do everything with the FPGA. And this is one of the reasons I don't put everything in the FPGA. You know, I could put the 2612 in the FPGA. I could put the 2151. I could put all the SIDs. I could have one board, one FPGA, everything in it. And then it becomes exactly what you're talking about, an FPGA board. And that's why the FPGA for me is a custom ASIC, like a custom ASIC that has the graphic engine, the control system. That's it, like a Mac. You buy a Mac, there's 2 or 3 weird chips that you don't know anything about. That's it. I integrate very little in them. The SID is an example of that, just because, you know, we cannot always find those SIDs. So if nobody has, some people don't have a SID, then you can still want to play that game that plays Commando's song. So, and you know what? There's something about it. Having a big bulky CPU in the middle of the board is, sorry to say, and I'm going to be vulgar again, fucking sexy. I don't know about you guys, but I look at the fucking Raspberry Pi and I look at that board and I'm like, oh my God, I want to play with that thing. I don't want to play with that stupid thing. You know, I'm sorry. I don't like the Raspberry Pi. And it's not the Raspberry Pi I don't like, it's what it created. But anyway, that's besides the point. Okay, guys, anything else at this point? We've been at it for what? A couple of hours, certainly. We started at 6, yeah, it's 2 hours and a half. Okay, guys, any other question at this point? I'm all yours. And if you're not on Discord, please join us on Discord. There's an address on the main site. I posted it everywhere now. Well, I hope by the time, Matt, for any games included with this computer. Okay, so here's the deal. I can only support, if any games are finished, let's say Norman, who is one of our game designers doing some games, hopefully he can finish some by this time. It's going to be for the 816 side. Okay, I cannot create games between now and then on the 68000. So the answer to that is no. Okay, so what I want to do is, when you're going to receive the system, what will be included also, I didn't mention it anywhere, but I will include an hard drive in there that's going to be formatted. I will include an SD card with some software in it. Whatever we have created so far, but it will be mostly for this. It will be for the 816, unless somebody that gets on the alpha program, let's say somebody is interested and is able to program something or transport something in between now and then. I'm not promising anything else than that. So I'm going to put an hard drive in there so nobody struggle with, oh, it doesn't work. And I will put an SD card with stuff in there. I mean, if I could put a diskette in there. And hopefully between now and then, with people that have FMXs and use, they can program new games. I know somebody wants to work on Necromancer, which is a game I absolutely adore. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I will provide them with the SD card so people can have some. But it will be very basic, like you're receiving your Commodore 64 in 1985, for example. There's a little bit of it, but not very. But we'll try to make, my goal is also to make sure that we have tools to get you going as quickly as possible. And if we get something to be flash on the flash of the system to boot into something, well, great. But again, I want to put my time and effort into bringing you your platform as soon as possible. I think working on the hardware is way better than working on the software, like an emulation software. And if I'm doing that, I cannot do anything else. But I can, if people are willing to put the time and money to get the alpha version, they want to start as early as possible without bothering themselves with the enclosure and all the bells and whistles, then we could have something in October. I'd like to show a working unit and start shipping at VCS East. I might be able to show a mock-up if I go at VCS West in August, but I'm not gonna promise anything about this. So, T-Turbo 128, you don't want me to get all riled up about the Raspberry Pi. Okay, but to put all any false idea you might have about it, I will tell you what I think because I feel like talking now. Let's buy a copy of this. Okay, so the Raspberry, I think there's good side about the Raspberry Pi. I think the Raspberry Pi can be great to get people involved into the whole industry, and I think one aspect of that we have been benefiting from is the fact that PCBs are so cheap nowadays. That has been absolutely wonderful. But the democratization of any industry where everybody can do anything, like writing or making movies, is also the thing that is destroying the very industry. That because there's so much, if you can read my lips, created, that it just, all the great creators are kind of swamped into the noise of the little creators. And that's what happened in the movie industry. There's so many people can do movies now that you cannot distinguish between a really good one or the great creators are kind of, but although a great creator will arise at one point, but it just makes the work more difficult. Writing is the same thing. Everybody decides to write. I decided to write one day and I realized I was not a great writer, but the step to go and become a good writer was too much to pay for me. But it just brings this thing about this, everybody is into it and it just destroys everything else. But at the same time, it did create something. But when it comes to retro, when I see stuff being run on retro on Raspberry Pi, I think people are missing the point. I think Gen X people tend to not get into the Raspberry so much, they get into the old unit, but the millennials, we need to straighten out the millennials, okay? We need to get them to see, okay, this is real retro. Forget the Raspberry Pi. This is noise. But that's my vision, okay? It's not a judgment on people. If people love Raspberry Pi, go for it. You want to run a 64 on Raspberry Pi, it's sacrilegious on so many levels. It's just, I mean, Tremel must be, turning in his grave saying people run the C64. I used to run the C64 and the Raspberry Pi, but hey, but it does have, it's so well supported that it makes it really easy to get into it. And I understand that for 30, 40 bucks, you can start getting your LED lighting up or control your LED with the girl that you speak to your phone that listens to everything you say in your room and your house. I don't use her, so I don't remember her name. But yeah, that's where the whole Raspberry Pi goes. So good side, bad sides, but for the retro community, I think it's really, really bad. But, you know, maybe for the arcade it's good. I don't know. I'm not a fan because it's just, I don't know. It's fast food and I'm looking forward to create great things and it's not within the realm of my thing. So when people say, hey, you should put a Raspberry Pi in it, like I'm gonna squeeze your neck like a chicken. Don't put a Raspberry Pi. It's like, but you know, I'm a purist. I mean, I deal with the chiptune people with the 2612. They're the same. They want the same sound. They want the same thingy. But for the hardware, for the retro, this is what I'm selling. Okay, I'm not selling a unit for sell a unit. I'm selling an idea for you guys to reconnect with the pleasure of struggling to get something working. But at the end of the day, you have sound, graphic, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. And you get it to share with others. And maybe it's a very niche and very elitist thing to do, but ask anybody who's been doing the development on the Foenix so far, and I'm sure they can tell you. Norman can tell you how much fun he's been having with the platform. Thanks, Matt. Anything else? So, does anybody want to buy a copy of this ship to say Chibi Akumas? I don't know what Chibi Akubas, but it must be important. Yeah, new stuff is, but again, they're trying to. I think anybody trying to create something to go in the mood. It's that's the thing that upset me the most. It's all the stuff that's been created to update everything. But I understand that finding a TV nowadays is difficult. So having a VGA, not an HDMI converter, can be great for consoles, stuff like this. But it's, you know, when you're upgrading your C64 with a new graphic chipset just to make 80 columns and like. Okay, I think it's yours, but anyway. Now I know the Tremiel was a suit, but again, you know, I'm a purist. I really believe in the concept that it's about creative, going back. Listen, guys, when I'm building this thing, I'm creating it. I feel how I felt back then, and that's what I found it so fun about it. I just got caught into the whole trying to please everybody, and I'm trying to get out of it. But when I'm going back to design, doing stuff like this, I really, really enjoy it. And the most amazing things for me is when I see people like Norman, Peter, Daniel coming out with stuff I never thought that freaking thing could do. And I'm absolutely in awe, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what I created. But the more fun is the fact that the people who created those things were very happy as well. This is my reward. You're going to rush, that thing doesn't work, and then finally it works and you see everybody using it and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. You'll be so proud of yourself. And that's what I'm selling. That's what I'm saying, because we don't have that shit anymore. Okay, we don't have any chance. We're using on machine that were constructed by people that just want to have a machine to do corporate stuff, corporate, and then gaming and gaming and then gaming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There's no fucking limit. I mean, within 10 years, we'll have a machine so powerful that we'll be able to immerse ourselves in a new layer of the matrix, and we're going to lose ourselves in it. That's great, right? So that's the point. That's what I'm trying to sell. Sell you the idea that you can have fun again in this life, even if you're 30, 40, 50. And we need to get the fucking millennials in line. Need to get them out of the freaking Linux mentality. And you know what I mean? They missed out on something. We were lucky. The 80s was probably the best 10 years for the last 100 years that ever I was. And we got it. The Gen X got it. The millennials just missed it. And we need to push them in their throat and say, hey, you need to live this. And that's part of this idea. It's like we bring this back We make it big again. And the new generation will get it. All right, so I'm going to read the comments. Yeah, Tramiel was a suit. Yes, he was. But still, he was the one who drove the whole thing. He did get the whole idea and save pennies on the dollars and everything to get the whole thing out. But yes, I do remember that the C64 was very down low for a year and a half and two. I mean, we got involved because of the college my brother was going, and they had this club, and they started hacking into cartridges. And even at the time, they were starting to make some protection, basic protection, but that's where it all started. And then I started hacking games. So my past was about hacking. So Detlef, you said I have one big wish. There's so Detlef, there's the wiki. Listen, I'm guilty as charged. I'm not maintaining the wiki properly. I need to probably write a manual as well. I know. So I would probably want to have some people to help me write that down too. But yeah, we need to get better at describing the technicalities of the project, the system. Now, I really want to get the Gen X to be the system, the ultimate system. I have other ideas of stuff I want to do, but ultimately I have all the documentation like the Commodore had with all we should have a user manual and a user manual for the Viki chip and so on and so forth. So this is something I need to put on my agenda and start doing. Because there is a lot of information, but it's very incremental and a lot of changes along the way. The wiki is probably the best place to go right now to have the really core stuff. You know, it's very rough, but it's there. So if you go on the main site, the wiki link, I removed the forum because the forum was a second place where it was like all was duplicated. There was not a lot of action. I was being spammed a lot. It's still there. The website is still there, but I'm not going anymore because there's no point. Nobody was going really. So it's all about Discord, and that's why I've been trying to get people to come on Discord and to gather on Discord. But Discord has the problem that, you need to look in the past, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So we need to have a center, very detailed, very up-to-date wiki where you're going to find everything. And I need to put that on my agenda. Ben, there's a lesson on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, no, I know. Chibi Akumas was interested to do, he actually wrote in his list of computer he wanted to do stuff with. He put the Foenix in it. He never did. He never talked to me. We never connected. He should get a unit and start doing it. But I think it should be when the unit exists before I start doing anything with it. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to do anything. Getting back the feels and the team as well. I don't know what you're meaning, but Jeffrey, so the Foenix is fixing the timeline to what's going to be and bringing it to the here and the now. Well, the Foenix Gen X is the flagship. It's going to be the flagship. This is going to be the one I want to focus the most in the future. Ultimately, in the best world again, if there was a lot of adoption for it, I'd like to do a Kickstarter for the enclosure to really get a real plastic enclosure for it. I'd like to see this product being made like a real professional, like a real company product being made, like an Apple computer made. That's my dream with the Gen X. Like a real beautiful molded plastic with the aluminum and everything. But yeah, that's my dream. So Jeffrey, the Foenix is the fixing timeline, then is fixing the timelines. But yeah, I wish there was new retro. Yeah, Matt, that's true. Yeah, actually, that's one funny part about that system. You could actually do that with it. You could actually use it as a base to create new games. I mean, actually, I saw somebody do exactly that. I did see a Kickstarter on somebody creating a board to do arcade games. Yeah, I don't know. I feel this is something that the world is, I think this is something the world is ready for, because, you know, these last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years have been really shitty. And there's this uprising of desire to go back to this. And I think it's time. And again, even David had this idea that to create a community, a big community of game creators. And I don't see why there could not be a way to make money out of it. You know, it's all about embracing the platform. Hardware without software doesn't go anywhere, and software without hardware doesn't go anywhere. We need to work together, and I need you. Anybody, I mean, most people are doing software. So I need you to help me out and straighten up my shit when I'm going wrong. And that's one of the things as well. You know, people, you can oppose me, okay, in a very nice way, because opposition is good, right? You know that. Having opposition on some stupid ideas I might have is a good thing. Makes me think about it anyway. There's also the idea, moving on to another subject. I'm just going through all these different subjects in my head I want to talk to you about. Okay, if anybody has a way, or would be the best way to centralize all the software that has been created. I mean, we could use the website, because if there's going to be some new software, new games that people want to share, but doesn't necessarily want to use GitHub for it. If anybody has an idea to have like a repo of all the games that exist, even if they're not finished, that could be usable to inspire. I mean, GitHub is a great way to go. Having our own IMDb of games for the Foenix or the Gen X to come. If you have any ideas, let me know. There's a lot of portion of all this project that's been underdeveloped because A, I don't have time, B, I'm not super excited about doing them because it's a lot of work for me. I'm not super, in the whole, creating website and everything. Even the website it's pure pain. Everything. Every time I get involved in it. But somebody needs to do it. I used to have somebody who was helping, but he's up to other stuff nowadays. He's been helping as well. So, anything else, guys? Any announcement from any other part of the team? Peter, I know Daniel is gone. I think give a few minutes and then we're going to close up shops. Again, any ideas you might have? You know where I'm going. If you like the idea of the alpha program, let me know. I don't want to enable it and it's not going to happen. I need your monetary supports if you can. Obviously, if you have a lot of disposable income, I will take your money from you. But I usually actually try to give some perks, like naturally give some perks to people that really wants to help. Early access or stuff like this. People don't know, but that's what I do. So, and Patreon, I'll start to boot it and try to get it going and try to find a way to, for the rainy days. But there's definitely a way to make this big, and it starts with software adoption and get stuff running. Probably, like I said a million times before, get maybe old stuff running and without doing any copyright infringement. Anything else? So, last word. Thank you very much, everybody. I mean, we got 30-ish people today. I'm freaking happy. I'm sure more people will watch it. I need to now organize it so people can jump from one place to the other. Thank you for your time, guys, for your support. I really, really, really deep in my heart appreciate it. I hope we can do great things together. And basically, it's up to you to make it happen. I'm just going to give you, the tools for you to make this thing a success. So I'm literally putting the pressure on you. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. And I might do these more often than not, so we can convene together and we can talk more about it. But again, I might do more streaming, technical streamings later. All right. Love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.